when he was a 20-year-old game booster in Incheon, an orphan with a buzz cut and a borrowed surname. Grinding 10-hour shifts at the Tomato Grand Internet Cafe for clients who never showed. Then the sky suddenly grew a giant mouth and swallowed him whole, changing everything. The Behemoth Survival Battlefield tagged him Survivor 777, triggering a special title. The goddess of luck's indulgence, the lonely orphan, was finally claimed by the goddess herself, gifting him an earth badger no other survivor could ever summon. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and stay tuned to see how he survives. But behind this incredible luck lies a painful past. This is the moment it all began. His name is Imi, and on the morning the sky swallowed him, he was just standing outside the Tomato Grand Internet Cafe in Incheon, standing 1.73 meters tall, scratching the back of his head and checking his phone every 30 seconds. Because his coaching client was running late, he had been a game booster for 5 straight years, working 10 hours a day, which turned him from a scrawny kid into a handsome young man, though people often mistook him for a girl by mistake. The misunderstanding was common enough that he never bothered to argue. His voice was completely neutral, and his face was just a bit too pretty. Whenever he let his hair grow past his ears, teasing comments would pile up for weeks. So he kept a short buzz cut ever since he was old enough to choose his own style. His name did not help either. The orphanage headmaster had found him abandoned at the Tomato Grand Orphanage during the 7th night festival and given him his name. She chose the character for 7, later upgrading it to a much fancier 7 because she disliked the plain version. Her surname was Im, and Im Han Yun was the most beautiful name he knew. When she peacefully passed away the year he turned 15, he kept her surname and continued her habit of visiting the orphanage every single afternoon to help the kids. That day, his coaching job was supposed to net him an easy paycheck. Instead, he stood muttering about the brutal rush-hour traffic and how if his client did not arrive before 10 a.m., the drive would swallow an entire hour. He stared up at the bright sky inside, wondering if the kid had simply overslept. Then the sky went pitch black. He gasped so hard it hurt as an impossibly massive mouth suddenly stretched across the entire sky. It was a terrifying mob belonging to a creature far too large to fit in his world. Before real terror could even take hold, his vision went dark and he lost consciousness completely. He woke up groggy, lying in tall grass towering high over his head under giant trees that did not belong to Earth. He stayed down, scanning his surroundings for any sign of movement or danger first, the way a player checks a game lobby before launching into a gunfight. Since nothing stirred, he finally sat up, realizing that whoever brought him here had also changed his clothes. His regular clothes were replaced by a heavy set of animal furs that should have been suffocating in the humid air, but he was barely warm. He patted his chest, relieved to feel his original shirt still underneath, and let out the breath he had been holding. He decided the new outfit was just free starting gear, rather than some weird kidnapping prank. After 30 minutes of tense, cautious silence, a booming voice announced he was officially a survivor on the Behemoth Survival Battlefield. This massive new playground was called the Behemoth Kindergarten. The giant voice instructed him to pay very close attention to the upcoming rules. The voice rattled off the rules without waiting for him to keep up. Every survivor drew base beast, the creature his survival depended on. Every survivor drew between 1 and 3 talents or skills, and the base beast itself rolled between 1 and killing behemoth cubs. Once the battlefield opened, had a chance to drop a treasure chest, and for the first 3 days the cubs would not attack survivors, with the drop rate generously boosted to ease beginners in. Battlefield panel would track everything. He liked it. Clean. He had spent 5 years inside game tutorials. This one just had a louder narrator. The voice fired off 2 more lines before he could process the first batch. He had been assigned to Behemoth Survival Battlefield number 7, District 777, as Survivor number 777, and that 777 combo triggered a unique special title called Lucky Goddess's Favor. He blinked hard. 7 was apparently the goddess of luck's lucky number, and he had stacked 7 of them by accident. Before he could roast his own fortune, a third line told him the battlefield would officially begin in 1 hour and that he should pull up his panel and start drawing. The panel obeyed. Instant reaction. A faint window unfolded across his vision, sectioned into personal panel, base beast panel, inventory, and chat channel. He rubbed his chin and tapped the personal panel. First, the display introduced him by name as Imi, listing his strength as a single. Question mark pinning his luck somewhere between 7 and 3 more unknowns. It left the talent and skill rows blank, stamping the lucky goddess's favorite title. Onto his forehead under the unique tag, the evaluation line then took its time. To mock him, noting that even the weakest newborn behemoth was stronger than he was, and politely wondered how he had survived this long before asking whether he happened to be the goddess of luck's child. He paused, let it land, even a newborn behemoth outstating an adult human meant the base beast really was everything the system claimed it was. No wonder it had been promoted at the top of the rules. He pulled up the title details next, and the first effect locked his luck to a floor of 7 no matter what happened, while the second granted him the blessing of the goddess of luck, 1 item blessed per day. The third sat as a question mark waiting to unlock. Tacked to the bottom was a message from the goddess herself, saying that she suddenly had a little child of her own and that her boy should work hard to climb up to where Mama was. He went quiet for a second, let it settle, because apparently he had picked up a divine mother on his way through that giant mouth, and the goddess of luck no less, which was about as convenient a draw as a transmigrating survivor could possibly ask for. He closed the personal panel and opened the base beast panel, which was empty as expected since he hadn't drawn one yet. The inventory came next, and the first 3 slots already had something inside them, a base beast egg that would automatically hatch in 1 hour if he didn't crack it first. Random talent roulette good for 1 to 3 spins on the same 1-hour auto fuse. And a random skill roulette running on that same timer. He muttered to himself that for a luck-based draw, the newly minted son of the goddess of luck should pull at least 2 of each, otherwise the title was getting wasted. Then he remembered the once-a-day blessing and stared down at the base beast egg, since that beast egg is the foundation of everything, the most critical piece on the board. He selects it and asks the system panel to bestow a blessing. The system asks back if he really wants to bless this basic beast egg. Naturally, he does. But the system politely informs him that the blessing of the goddess of luck cannot be used on living creatures, and his title has quietly updated to reflect this strict rule. He taps through the update, discovering a fresh line written at the very bottom by the goddess herself, explaining to Zai that her legendary blessing cannot touch living organisms since not every life form can withstand pure luck. Fine, if his cheapskate goddess mom says so, he will be an obedient son. He jumps straight to the talent roulette instead, since talents are much rarer than skills, and drops his blessing onto it. The roulette wheel in his inventory sheds its plain skin for a soft golden glow, making it look incredibly high-end. He taps it for details. 3 guaranteed spins are waiting with the drop rate for special talents boosted. This epic blessing from the goddess of luck is already earning its keep already. Warm-up is officially done. And now it is time to hatch the egg, to see what kind of monster he has pulled. He drags the basic beast egg out of inventory and activates it. The massive egg materializes right before him, 3 meters tall. The sheer bloodline power makes perfect sense now. A behemoth cub hatching at this gargantuan size completely outclasses humanity immediately. A fully grown one defies all natural laws. The heavy shell shakes, spiderwebbing with deep cracks like glass shattering under a heavy hammer blow. Just seconds later, the shell crumbles and his starter beast stands there, blinking its giant eyes the size of dinner plates. Zai shivers violently, unable to hide his absolute terror. He has never even stood within reach of a wild tiger in real life. Now a roaring creature as massive as a delivery van has just hatched. Directly from an egg bound to his soul, the beast slowly lowers its giant head, chewing on the broken eggshell with the calm, methodical appetite of a newborn. Watching it eat, he suddenly realizes that this peculiar form feels familiar. The broad face, the heavyset claws, that distinct stripe running down its back. He whispers in shock that it looks exactly like a giant honey badger, then immediately scolds himself for wondering about the biological rules of this strange new world. Nothing here follows the logic of his old life anyway. He opens up the base beast panel to inspect its official stats. The species is listed as Earth Badger Cub, with its initial strength ranked at Bing level. Its heritage is the giant beast bloodline, which the system helpfully breaks down from basic giant wild beast all the way up to giant demonic, giant mutated, giant desolate, starry sky, universe, and the eternal giant beast. Its unique talent list includes passive specialization, toxicity adaptation, and disdain. Active skills are listed as flesh-skin separation and iron head. Meanwhile, the home base is registered simply as a grass hut, the beast description paints this badger as a dominant overlord of the great earth plains, a mutated force that lives to fight, constantly looking for its next clash. The system evaluation notes that for starting beast egg, the absolute highest bloodline tier available is giant beast, dropping at an absurd 0.001% rate. 1 in 100,000 bloodline gift. He mutters that the description. It seemed to undersell the beast, since an earth badger was supposed to be a giant. This mutated beast had somehow jumped 2 whole tiers above its normal species limit. He made a mental note to stop questioning free gifts and tap the talents. First up was passive specialization, an epic unique talent that doubled his passive skills. The catch was it locked out active skills, capping things at level 8 for now. But those multipliers promised to keep stacking up as he leveled. Even without perfect multiplier scaling, the starting floor boost was already completely insane. His ceiling could reach a 10-fold passive bonus. Next was toxicity adaptation. Rated at perfect quality, it granted full immunity to lower-tier toxins. This basically meant he could easily shrug off almost any late-game poison. Then came disdain, a transcendent racial talent boosting stats by 1%. It excluded luck, a hidden stat, but raw percentage buffs were always gold. They never went out of style. To him, the skill set looked lean but solid. Take flesh and skin separation, a perfect quality passive skill. Kept the badger's hide and flesh slightly separated to cushion incoming blows. The damage got mitigated before landing, though high-rank attacks could still pierce it. Next was Iron Head, a rare passive that bumped strength and constitution. He tapped the back of his hand, a nervous habit when analyzing stats. Then he remembered, passive specialization doubled all of it. A doubled small increase was still small, but a 100% improvement. No joke, he closed the screen, completely happy with his beast. The goddess had stacked this badger's sheet beautifully, only the foundation row was left. He clicked through to check it. The system offered a common grass hut. It had a building area of 3 by 2 meters and 0 structures. Sitting at level 0, entering required him to simply touch his base beast. He just had to place a hand on it and mentally command an entry. Of course, he could not use this trick during active combat. Its system guide explained exactly why it was called a base beast. The inner foundation took 0 damage unless the host beast actually died, though some rare, specialized abilities could still bypass that defense. He looked over at the earth badger, who was calmly munching away. Perched on its shoulders was a tiny grass hut resembling a miniature dollhouse. He walked up, pressed his palm against the badger, and triggered the command. His vision went pitch black, and a second later, he was standing inside. Standing full-size right before him, the grass hut looked impressive, but the ground was strange. The entire floor was covered in coarse hairs, the badger's own fur. Everything felt like being shrunk and dropped right into someone's toy room. Inside, the layout was simple, featuring just a single door and 1 window. It took up most of the 3 by 2 meter floor, leaving a tiny courtyard. Despite the grass walls, the interior felt strangely secure and quiet. Stepping back outside, he leaned against the wall and opened his inventory. He picked the blessed talent wheel first. 3 guaranteed spins lay ahead. The boosted drop rates made this a buffet he simply couldn't pass up. A massive golden wheel materialized in front of him, ringed with over 100 small squares of varying sizes, each marked with 3 mysterious question marks. A giant number 3 in the center marked his remaining spins. He rubbed his hands together. He prepared to pray. Back when he spun gacha for paying clients, he always prayed to every single god and Buddha in rotation, pulling the desired weapon early. Meant the leftover budget went into his pocket, but this time he had connections. He was the goddess of Luck Mama's brand new son after all, so he prayed silently too. The goddess of Luck Mama, begging for a mythical grade special talent with a respectful request for the absolute highest tier on her shelf, far off in an unknown space. Far above him, the goddess of Luck Mama slowly opened her golden eyes. She stared blankly ahead at something only she could see, a small, amused smile playing at the corner of her lips. She shook her head gently, like dealing with a greedy child who had asked for too much. Then she raised 1 slender finger and tapped the air. A faintly glowing gold coin appeared, hovering in place before it. Vanished, a quiet ripple ran across the empty space, dissolving as the goddess closed her golden eyes once more, slipping back into her divine slumber. Back in the kindergarten zone, his prize wheel was spinning so fast the squares blurred into a single ring of light. He stared at it, his heart climbing straight into his throat. The squares were all different sizes, and he had no clue if bigger or smaller was actually better, but going by every scammy game he had ever boosted, the smaller ones had to be rarer. After 10 long seconds, the wheel finally slowed. After another 3 seconds, the pointer settled on a square. It wasn't the absolute smallest, but it was one of only 3 of that size. A chime told him he had drawn the legendary grade unique talent, Harmony. The whole wheel flared with a gold so bright it blinded him. He rubbed his eyes and stared again just to be sure. And yes, the screen still read legendary unique. He laughed out loud, shouting that a kid with a mama was truly a treasure, and that goddess of luck mama was the best. He tapped spin again before his lucky streak could cool. Spin 2 landed on a special perfect grade talent called Architect. His third spin landed on another special transcendent grade talent called Builder. Both were special and clearly base related. This match pair was way too perfect to be random. He stared at the 2 new names for a moment, letting a grin spread across his face. Next up was the skill wheel, which looked pretty plain and shabby next to the still glowing talent wheel, and he gave it a brief moment of mourning for his lost blessing before tapping to spin. His first roll dropped an excellent grade skill called Ejection, and his second roll got him a common grade special skill called Decomposition Art. Excellent quality was mid-shelf and perfectly fine for a starter, while common quality on a special skill felt a little stingy, according to the old rule of thumb. Low quality usually meant a weaker effect, so he quietly hoped Decomposition Art wouldn't end up too useless when he tried to use it. He pulled up his system status to confirm what the wheels had granted him. Harmony came up as a special legendary unique talent at level 1 out of 9 with its active first effect, letting companions share and sum up their basic stats. Meanwhile, effects 2 through 4 remained locked. His companion counter currently ticked at 1 slot used out of 9, with the description reading that he had it, the badger had it, and everyone had it. Even the comment at the bottom muttered something about 1 plus 1 equaling n, and that the math was going way too far, but the lucky gold coin would make it work. He had no clue what lucky gold meant, but the rest of the layout was pure heaven, defying all expectation, exactly the payoff a legendary unique talent is supposed to deliver. The Architect talent arrived as a special class with a perfect quality rating. Maxing out at level 6, it boosts every building's effect by 1% per level. The description even bragged that he only used real high-quality materials. Next was the Builder talent, a transcendent grade skill maxing out at level 7, slashing building requirements by 1% per level, down to a minimum of 1. It was like someone was customized shopping for him. He rubbed his chin in disbelief. Staring at the 2 screens side by side, these were clearly late-game talents. At max level, a 6% building boost paired with a 70% material cut. That kind of insane combination simply does not drop twice in a row by accident. The goddess of luck had quietly warned him to play it safe and grow his base. Honestly, he was more than inclined to listen to his new divine mother. Moving on, the skill readouts were much quicker than the talents. Ejection popped up as an excellent active skill, maxing out at level 5. It launches him into a powerful forward burst, boosting movement speed upon landing. The system warned that anyone below Huang level strength shouldn't spam it. He nodded along, knowing this would easily handle both escapes and chases. Then came Decomposition Arc, a special active skill of common quality. It allows him to break down beast carcasses into useful crafting materials. There was even a tiny 1% chance to pull a rare, special item. The description noted it was highly cost-effective on food he could not finish. That hint clicked instantly, considering a behemoth's body was always absolutely massive. He would never finish eating it, even with his badger helper chiming in. Converting leftover meat into building materials was a great second option. While the low quality stung, the actual function was exactly what he needed. With all the readouts cleared, he had only minutes before the battlefield opened. The final check was Harmony. He quickly stepped outside the base. Reappearing beside the earth badger, the little guy had just finished eating eggshells. It was yawning, and as he reached out to pat its belly, he froze. When the cub first hatched, his hand could barely reach its upper back. Now that exact same reaching motion barely touched its stomach. He took a step back. Moving back several meters to double-check, the cub had stretched from 3 meters. Now it was a massive 5 meters long, the size of a small truck. Insane nutrition at work. He could only laugh in disbelief. If he had not pulled Harmony, his early game survival would have been brutal. He would be hiding inside a tiny hut while this beast lived on him. He opened the beast panel to see how this growth spurt affected the stats. The badger's physical strength had skyrocketed from Bing level all the way to Huang level. The bloodline still read Giant Beast, with all the talents and skills listed. They remained under the proper names, and the foundation was still a grass hut. He muttered aloud that a beast this large obviously had to scale its stats. Still, that jump was incredibly aggressive, proving how wild these behemoths truly are. They operate on totally different physics. He felt envious for all of 3 seconds. But then he remembered that in a moment, those numbers would benefit him. He walks over, resting his hand on the giant earth badger to activate his harmony skill. The system chimes in his head, confirming that the harmony skill successfully connected. But before he can even celebrate, a sudden, searing heat floods his entire body. It stings at first, then shifts into a deep, soothing warmth that cancels the pain. Before he can even scream, thick veins bulge beneath his skin and sweat starts pouring. It drenches his back, making him look like some kind of shady, terrifying villain who would terrify kids at an orphanage gate. Finally, the burning sensation fades. The pain vanishes like a dream, leaving him feeling unbelievably light and refreshed. Even though his sweat-slicked arms tell a different story, he barely notices the mess. Clenching his fists, he stretches slowly to test his newly upgraded physical form. He feels lighter and more comfortable than ever before, immediately opening his status panel. The screen displays his name as Imi, listing his raw strength as unknown. His luck sits at 7 with 3 unknowns, while his listed talents are Harmony, Architect, and Builder, with skills like ejection and decomposition art. And at the very bottom, his title has evolved into Goddess of Luck's Indulgence. Under a unique tag, he chuckles at how terrifying this sheet is. Suddenly, the giant earth badger snaps to attention, entering a vigilant stance. It lets out a low, warning roar, scanning the tall grass left and right. He tries to see what caught its attention, but the surrounding vegetation is massive. Towering at twice his height, the grass blocks his view, so he leaps upward. Landing right on the badger's back, a jump impossible without his harmony skill. Perched high on the beast's spine, he finally gets a clear view of the plains. But nothing is moving out there, no shadows, just a vast sea of green. The massive grass ripples in the distance. He mutters to himself in confusion. Maybe whatever the badger detected is hiding deep within the thick growth. Somewhere completely out of sight, just then, a gentle breeze rolls over the plains. But this gentle breeze hits him like a full-force hurricane, forcing him down. He grabs handfuls of the badger's fur, clinging for dear life to the beast. A light wind for a local monster almost blows him right off his mount. The gale lasts for about 10 seconds before dying down. He slowly stands up. Brushing himself off, he realizes that absolutely nothing in this world. Scaled for a 1.73-meter human, the badger roars again. But this time its eyes are locked to the east, where the grass shakes. The movement travels in a winding, slithering line. It could be a giant snake. But in a world of massive monsters, a colossal centipede would shake it similarly. So he stays completely quiet and waits. Suddenly, the system's massive voice rings out, announcing that the 1-hour grace period has ended and the Behemoth Battlefield is now officially open. He barely glances at the glowing system text. For the first 3 days, monster cubs will not automatically attack survivors. But passive behavior does not mean they are harmless, so he stays on guard. Keeping his eyes locked on the moving grass, a terrifying creature finally emerges. It is a massive centipede, easily the size of 2 parked cars. Covered in metallic green plating, its legs are lined with sharp, barbed spikes. Its jaws are armed with massive mandibles, looking ready to rip him to pieces. This absolute nightmare insect would make any normal person pass out instantly. Ending up as monster food, a pretty clear warning to remember for the rest of his life. But the earth badger had a completely different reaction. Its small black nose twitched once and then twitched again. A moment later, he heard a soft dripping sound coming from right underneath him. Looking down at the badger's fur, he realized his own beast was drooling all over. The grass at the site of its second ever meal, the first had been an eggshell. Now it was a green metallic centipede that apparently smelled like instant noodles. He patted its flank and told it to go. The badger covered the distance in just 3 seconds, slamming one paw down on the centipede's head, pinning it to the dirt. It dropped a second paw across the body when the writhing tail tried to coil around its leg. Then the badger ripped the bug in half. Green blood sprayed across the grass, the badger, and all over his boots as he hopped down off its back. The earth badger casually picked up the head and, chewing with the exact same serene focus, it gave that eggshell. He barely had time to think his badger was an absolute monster before the sky lit up with golden script announcing his feat to the entire battlefield. Survivor 77 was the first to kill a giant beast. The reward was the Encyclopedia of Giant Beasts, the first blood title, and a special first kill treasure chest. The system broadcasted it 3 times. Nobody could miss this. Perfect, because the chat channel was still locked, leaving him with nobody to brag to. He stood there, his eyebrow raised high. He was actually first, across an entire battlefield of survivors, his newborn cub killed before anyone else. He let out a soft laugh. The goddess of luck was working. A treasure chest had popped into existence right next to what was left of the centipede. He walked over while his badger kept crunching away on its breakfast. The smell of it actually made him pretty hungry, and he realized he had been transported here around 10 in the morning, spending an hour on the road, meaning it had to be past 11 back on Earth time, and lunch was long overdue. The chest was named Exquisite Black Iron, a prefixed iron treasure chest, third on the quality ladder. He opened the lid. 2 items glowed inside. The first was an excellent quality, exquisite bread that promised a full day of satiety. The description noting it was carefully prepared for weak survivors. The line stung, but he refused to argue with it. Compared to a massive beast like his badger, weak was just accurate. The second was an excellent quality azure carapace bracer, made from the shell of that azure carapace centipede. No active effects, just solid flat defense. This was his very first piece of gear, even if carved from the exact species he had just torn in half. He picked it up and equipped the bracer, watching it dissolve into light that wrapped his arm from shoulder to wrist, weightless and smooth. He rolled his shoulder but couldn't feel a thing. Then he sat down in the grass and ate that exquisite bread. The loaf had a rich, milky aroma without any greasiness, and he quickly finished the entire loaf. Patting his stomach, he felt 80% full, perfect for an entire day. His appetite had clearly scaled up with the harmony bond since the old him would have been stuffed halfway through. He was set for a while. Choking down the dry bread is rough. The moment the last stale bite finally clears his throat, he realizes he is suddenly bone dry, parched, but before he can even complain, the sky lights up again. Survivor 197 million just killed the second giant beast, grabbing the encyclopedia and a second-place title from a bronze treasure chest. He looks up at the golden announcement scrolling across the heavens. He snorts. The second-place rewards are completely trash compared to his own, and whoever got that spot will be grinding their teeth in envy. He shrugs off the thought, closes the announcement, and opens his own inventory to inspect those sweet first kill rewards. The giant beast encyclopedia shows up as a perfect quality special skill, once learned. It unlocks a unique technique, letting him read any unclaimed giant monster's attributes, habits, value, and threat level just by touching it. The description claims this book is just as vital to survival as a base itself. Absolutely crucial. Knowing your enemy before picking a fight is the ultimate rule of every game he ever boosted, and it is going to keep him alive in this crazy world. Next, the first blood title is rare quality, adding 1% to his overall damage, even though the system says only one title can be worn at once. This bonus stacks passively, a very generous exploit, honestly. Now the first kill treasure chest is where he holds his breath. It is special quality, boasting the highest possible variance of any chest, able to drop anywhere from 1 to 9 different reward items. And the description guarantees at least one special item inside. Guaranteed, ready for a miracle. He rubs his palms together and closes his eyes. In praise to the goddess of luck for a total jackpot, the chest pops open in a blinding flash of gold that makes his eyes water. As the light fades, 4 items appear. 4 items, solidly middle of the road. He lets out a quick sigh of disappointment before reminding himself that this whole haul was completely free. Then he starts inspecting them. First is an inventory expansion card, a perfect quality special item that adds one slot to his inventory on use. He uses it immediately, watching his storage grid widen by one slot. The description jokes that nobody can ever carry enough. True enough, he completely agrees. Second is a pair of boulder treads, excellent quality boots, forged from raw ore over a thin leather inner sole. They offer average defense but are pretty heavy. He stares at the stone shoes for a moment, wondering what kind of crazy blacksmith decided a person should walk around wearing rocks, but he puts them on anyway. Heavy is a forgivable flaw when the alternative is nothing. Third is a black armor horned greatsword. It is a rare quality weapon forged from the horn of a giant black beetle. The massive blade is easily 2 meters long with an inch thick, heavy, easily over 100 pounds. Still, he picks it up and gives it a slow test swing through the empty air. Without his harmony bond, he probably could not even lift it, but with it, the weapon feels incredibly natural. His hands, he grins, stashing it in his expanded inventory. Finally, the fourth item is a fireplace blueprint. This rare consumable pattern allows him to build a stone and mud fireplace right inside his home, requiring only basic materials. He needed 1 stone of inequality, 4 mud of inequality, and some tinder. The fireplace would warm his shelter and boost fuel burn time by 3%. The second he finished reading, the first kill chest dissolved into thin air. He rubbed his chin, scanning the immediate area for some stones. Basketball-sized rocks littered the grass, and he hoisted one up effortlessly with one hand. Grinning at how incredibly light it felt now, he tossed it into his inventory. The rock vanished from his hand, popping up in his system grid as junk quality. A polite description informed him that this was just a totally ordinary rock. It was completely useless. These junk stones did not even qualify as crafting material. That blueprint restriction felt like a total slap in the face, but he kept harvesting. Tiny pebbles refused to register in his inventory space, so he did some testing. It turned out only basketball-sized or larger rocks actually triggered the system's storage. He ended up with 27 useless junk stones that could not craft a single thing. At least he could chuck them at someone in a pinch. Then the sky flashed again. Survivor 9800 and something claimed third place, securing another beast encyclopedia. They also got the title 3 steps behind and an iron chest. Good reminder. He pulled out his own giant beast encyclopedia, slotting it into active skills. Turns out it was just a simple appraisal skill, dressed up under a fancy name. Amused, he decided to test the skill on his very own companion, the Earth Badger. The system flatly refused, saying the encyclopedia could not analyze a claimed beast. This meant every other survivor's pet was a total mystery. Pretty smart design, right? And his own beast was hidden too, just the way he liked it. Anyone could be hiding some monstrous, heaven-defying talent behind that lock, including him. Honestly, this symmetry was the only fair rule in this brutal game. He mounted his badger. Searching for direction, he saw nothing but endless grasslands except for one landmark. A colossal tree towered over the distant horizon, dwarfing everything else in sight. He aimed his mount toward it because choosing the wrong direction beat standing still. The Earth Badger surged forward in a smooth, remarkably low and steady gait. Despite being the size of a heavy truck, the creature made absolutely no noise. No ground tremors, no loud thuds, just the silent slide of a native apex predator. He constantly scanned the brush, desperately searching for any sign of wild beasts. He needed a living target to test his skill, but 30 minutes passed. Not a single creature appeared, and that massive tree still looked miles away. Another 30 minutes slipped by, and the landmark had barely shifted an inch. He muttered the old saying about a close mountain riding a horse to death. Before long, the thick vegetation began to thin out, and the grass finally shrank. From chest-high down to his ankles, his line of sight finally opened up. Standing tall on his badger's spine to get a better view, he immediately spotted something. A distinct, freshly pressed track cut straight through the dirt right ahead. It was continuous and smooth, easily 10 centimeters wide, clearly a massive snake path. He stroked his chin, weighing the odds. His starting beast was an earth badger. And honey badgers ate snakes for breakfast. This slithering target was basically free food. He confidently commanded his beast to track and follow the fresh trail. The creature sniffed the path, its eyes instantly widening. This prey smelled incredibly delicious. Its pace surged, tongue flicking out in pure anticipation of an absolute feast. Just a few twists later, the path wound around some low brush, and They spotted the owner, a giant grayscale snake coiled up and resting, with a thick body matching that 10-centimeter track. Its massive coils suggested at least 10 meters of total length stretched flat. He tapped the badger to halt and hide. In the cover, since a stealthy approach beats a messy brawl, and aimed his giant beast encyclopedia technique at the creature. The status screen popped up. It was a grayscale giant belly snake cub, weak level, fierce beast bloodline. 1 talent, toxic secretion, +2 skills, constricting bind and rapid assault. Danger level low. The description showed these giant belly snakes live near water. Adults can reach 100 meters with crazy strength, ranging from swan to die. They had no special value as monsters, but their meat was highly delicious. And monster merchants would gladly buy them. This weak level was one whole Bing level below his earth badger, which was already sitting comfortable at hang level. The beast's talents and skills were excellent and rare, both within easy reach. He ordered the ambush. His earth badger trotted forward without making a sound, dropped into a low hunting crouch, and lunged like a starved tiger. The giant grayskull snake immediately fired off its constricting bind on pure instinct, whipping its body around the badger and squeezing hard, but that massive squeeze landed absolutely nowhere, thanks to its skin separation skill and doubled iron head defense, plus the massive size difference. The snake was essentially just giving his badger a massage. The snake twisted and squeezed and twisted again, but the badger did not budge. Talk about a complete tank. The badger, clearly annoyed by the disrespect, slammed one heavy paw on the head and put all its weight into the second. The snake began thrashing wildly, whipping its body and slapping the ground hard enough to kick up dust. The badger took a few hard tail slaps to the side without even flinching, then leaned down and bit the snake clean through the neck. Blood sprayed. The snake body convulsed. This time the badger learned its lesson and pinned the severed neck down with a paw so the spray missed. Smart cub. He was honestly pretty proud. The snake body kept twitching for a few seconds, from muscle memory, before going completely still. The badger dragged the carcass over and began chewing happily on the meaty middle of the snake with total focus and contentment. Apparently, that giant centipede from earlier had just been a light appetizer and this was lunch. He shook his head, let it eat, and walked over to the head of the snake, where a treasure chest had materialized. The skull was flattened like a pancake, but he figured he could still use his decomposition art skill on it. As the skull glowed softly and dissolved, it left behind 2 palm-sized fangs. The system panel immediately logged them as giant belly snake fangs, 2 of them, both excellent quality. Not bad for a part of the beast. The badger did not even chew. He pocketed the fangs and checked out the chest. The label read giant wooden treasure chest. It was simple wooden tier, but the prefix gave it a nice stat boost. Inside were 2 items. First was a rare grayscale giant armor, crafted from the snake hide, giving a slight defense boost and cooling qualities, perfect for hot weather. This was actually a pretty sweet find. He already possessed a weapon. Now he had armor to protect himself. No more relying on his little badger companion to fight every single battle. Their stats were synchronized, but his fragile human skin remained unchanged. Going into battle gearless, a terrible trade, regardless of his boosted stats. He quickly equipped the armor on the spot, watching the plates mold around him. It fit snugly right beneath his heavy fur coat, layering over his casual shirt. He knocked on the chest plate, then he tested his own gut. Absolutely nothing was felt. Low-tier attacks would never pierce this armor. Next up was a massive loaf of common quality bread, a full meter long. The system flagged it as enough food for 3 whole days, or 6 with rationing. Having 0 food reserves made this a massive win. He secured the haul. By now, the greedy badger had devoured most of the dead snake at a slower pace. The little beast was visibly stuffed. Only a meter of tail remained. When the creature waddled away, he walked over to collect the leftover carcass scraps. Casting his decomposition skill on the remains, the interface suddenly pinged him. He received 1 portion of fresh snake meat and 1 damaged piece. This clean meat was common grade, weighing 100 grams, but the damaged portion that came with clear warnings. Sanitary standards were absolutely not guaranteed. Having the beast's saliva all over it, he groaned in sheer frustration. A whole meter of massive snake yielded only 2 pounds of edible meat. The system processing fee on this magic was nothing short of daylight robbery. Where did the skin go? A whole meter of hide was missing. Talk about a scam. The system had completely embezzled his hard-earned loot. Muttering complaints, he stored his meager loot and hopped onto the badger's back. They set off toward the gigantic tree once again. Soon, he began to yawn. Rubbing his heavy eyelids, he realized exhaustion was creeping up on him. Back home, it would be around 2 o'clock, his usual afternoon nap time. Checking his status panel for a clock, he found absolutely nothing. The chat interface might have a clock, but that option remained entirely locked. Looking up at the sky, the blazing sun had still not reached its peak. Local noon had not arrived yet, even though he felt he had traveled for hours. By his count, he had been here for 5 long hours. 5. Can you imagine surviving a 40-hour day? Time here was definitely different. A mental note was made to track the daylight. The march continued. By the time the colossal world tree finally loomed closer, hours had crept by. Riding the giant badger was exhausting, yet the sun still refused to move. This towering flora looked like something straight out of a big-budget fantasy film. It resembled a legendary world tree, truly a majestic and towering sight. An entire forest of these absolute monoliths stretched out far into the distance. Passing beneath the canopy, they both let out a sigh of relief. The sudden shadow brought a welcome drop in the sweltering heat around them. With the midday sun getting brutal, going without water was becoming a nightmare. Dehydration was fast becoming a massive threat to his survival in this place. Feeling completely parched, he muttered his endless complaints. Suddenly, the badger stopped. The giant beast whipped its head around, scanning the dense foliage for danger. He looked at the dead leaves on the ground. The forest floor was carpeted in fallen leaves, each one stretching several meters long. With every step, his earth badger crackled loudly across the floor. Suddenly, the beast snarled at a completely empty patch of leaves ahead. He looked where it was staring but saw nothing, just a heap of dry brown leaves. But the earth badger never lied about danger, and he trusted its nose more than his own eyes. Animal instinct never lies. He stared until the camouflage, and then he nearly choked. A 3-meter dead leaf mantis was crouched right there in plain sight, its body and limbs blending with the dry leaves. Underneath, staying motionless until he pinned it with his gaze, it must have realized it was spotted because it dropped the leaf disguise and rose into an alert stance, keeping its body angled defensively since his badger was several times its size. The insect had clearly done the math. He fired his giant beast encyclopedia technique at it. Dead leaf mantis, juvenile with weak strength. Level: a giant beast bloodline, 0 talents, and 2 skills called assault scythe. In camouflage, danger level low. The system screen described it as a camouflage mantis common in forests. Adults could reach anywhere from 5 to 70 meters. With power around swan level, holding no real value, absolutely 0. Difficulty here, he patted his pet, ordering it to take the kill. The earth badger charged before the giant insect could even decide to fight or flee. It slammed it flat against the leaves, the mantis's spindly limbs cracking under the badger's heavy mass in 3 or 4 loud pops. The abdomen twisted once, the green body went limp, and a handy treasure chest dropped onto the leaves beside the corpse. He had actually drawn his black armor horn greatsword on the way over, hoping to test it out on a live target. Instead, he was left standing there like an idiot at a wedding with no bride. He sheathed the sword, walked over to the chest, and read the label: a plain wooden treasure chest, no prefix but holding 2 items inside. The first was an agility potion, an excellent quality consumable, offering a slight permanent agility boost upon drinking, though the description warned that once his speed passed a certain threshold, the potion would stop working. Still, permanent stat juice for free was an absolute win any day of the week, and since the bottle felt cold, he downed it right there, letting it double as a quick sip of water. It tasted faintly of sweet apple cider, surprisingly clean. The second item was a survival supply box, an excellent quality consumable that gave 1 liter of pure water, 50 grams of food, and 1 random high-quality survival tool. He muttered that the battlefield was being remarkably gentle with these weak survivors, almost suspiciously soft. It bordered on patronizing, but he opened the chest anyway. The panel pinged him 500 milliliters of water in 2 bottles, 1 burger, and an iron pickaxe. The water was securely bottled, ready to quench his thirst the moment he cracked the cap open, plus the burger came out steaming hot, making him hiss with surprise. Apparently, the starter zone really did not want its survivors suffering through a cold meal on their very first day. He stowed the burger in his inventory because time froze inside there, keeping it nice and hot until he finally ate it. the iron pickaxe was an excellent quality tool, with a 1% chance to double his yield while mining an ore vein, with a warning that hitting ore far above the pickaxe's grade would quickly wear it. Mining was clearly a whole side system in this world, and he had just pulled the entry-level kit for it without even looking. The goddess of luck was earning her keep on every chest now. He tucked the burger, the pickaxe, and one bottle of pure water into his inventory. Then he cracked the other bottle, taking a few swallows before the earth badger trotted up with its tongue hanging out like a dog at a hose. He scratched the rough fur between its eyes and tipped what was left straight into its mouth. But even half a bottle for a base beast the size of a small truck had to feel like a thimble. The badger's expression went soft and content, and he decided against cracking the second bottle because the second bottle was his and they both knew it. The empty bottle promptly dissolved into nothing, which annoyed him on principle, since he had wanted to keep it as a refill canteen and the system had quietly stripped that option without warning. That cheapskate goddess mom and her stingy inventory rules. He turned back to the dead leaf mantis corpse and squinted at it because the badger had not even tried to take a bite, and a hungry base beast did not usually walk away from fresh meat. He asked the badger why it had not eaten, and the badger snorted, looking off into the leaves. He took that as a clear sign that giant insect meat was beneath it. Fair enough. He dropped the decomposition skill on the mantis instead, and the panel logged him 2 sickles and 2 pieces of insect meat, all common quality. The sickles with the mantis's forearms, over 1 meter long each and uncomfortably sharp, while the insect meat actually came out looking a little like lobster, pale and clean. He wondered briefly whether it tasted like one, too, before tucking everything away in his inventory. He started to yawn before he even straightened up. The earth badger yawned right after him, a wide pink chasm full of teeth, and he had a quiet laugh at the two of them, the supposed apex predator of the great earth plains and the buzzcut survivor on its back, both ready to nap through the worst of the sun. The forest floor outside the shade was rippling visibly in the heat, that watery shimmer seen off summer asphalt. He muttered that the air had to be sitting somewhere around 50 degrees Celsius, the sort of temperature that should have flattened him on contact, but it had not. He was warm but not punished, the kind of warm from walking around indoors with the heat slightly too high. The reason was hanging on his body. He pulled up the inventory tag for the fur clothes the system had dressed him in at the start, and read the line for the first time. The label called it novice fur clothes. Special equipment, perfect quality, with the effect of holding his body temperature inside a comfortable band between roughly 15 and 35 degrees Celsius, and a description noting it was beginner equipment for weak survivors to be reclaimed once the N-Thurs period ended, so his divine cheapskate mom had clothed him at a perfect quality grade for free, with a politely worded eviction notice attached. He shrugged at the air and accepted the gift while it lasted, because perfect quality climate control for a beginner who could not stand outside the shade was not the kind of present he was going to argue with. Nap times. He patted the earth badger and told it to lie down, and the badger curled itself into a shaded patch with the languid satisfaction of an old house cat finding the right spot, and within a minute its breathing had dropped into a low, steady snore. He could not just sleep on the ground beside a creature the size of a truck, so he set his palm against its flank and walked into the foundation where the grass hut and its little courtyard waited the same as he had left them. He laid down on the floor of the hut, closed his eyes, and let himself sink. The walls were grass and the floor was base beast fur, and the entire structure was perched between the badger's shoulders. But inside, with the badger alive, the place felt safer than any apartment he had ever rented. His mother on the other side of the sky was a goddess of luck. His new home was a hut on a badger's back. His old life had been 10-hour gacha boosts and incinerating rush hour at Headmaster Grandma's afternoons at the orphanage, and the realization landed quietly without any of the heat he would have expected. Because half asleep, he could still notice that everything ordinary about Blue Star had become the peace people back home dreamed about. He let the bitter little smile come and go without working it over, and he went under. He woke up to a sound that punched right through the wood of the hut and into his eardrums. It was a long ringing screech, ratcheting and metallic, the kind of noise that bypassed thought and went straight to teeth. He stumbled up, rubbed a stiff neck, and walked out of the foundation back onto the earth badgers Shoulders, the afternoon sun was still high. The screech came again, doubled and tripled, layered with siblings echoing from neighboring trees. And the moment he looked up, he found his noisemaker on the trunk of the giant tree. About a dozen meters above him, a cicada the size of a small car was clinging to the bark and chirping with its whole body. He muttered that cicadas had no business growing to 4 meters, pointing the giant beast encyclopedia. Technique at it, the readout came back as blazing monkey cicada larvae strength. Weak level bloodline giant beast, 1 talent named molting, 2 skills named chirp and urine ejection, danger level extremely low. The description added that blazing monkey cicadas only emerged in the hottest summer weeks, that adult blazing monkey cicadas grew anywhere from 3 to 50 meters, mostly settling at Shuan level, and that the larvae molted once every 10 days. The molted shells were valuable as medicinal ingredients in alchemy, and merchants paid high prices for intact ones. He raised an eyebrow and grinned. Talk about a crazy opportunity, the screaming. Overhead was a free pharmacy. He patted the badger and sent it on a slow circuit around the giant tree, scanning the bark for husks. Within half a minute he spotted one, a translucent, hollow shape clinging to the wood about 20 or 30 meters up. The bark was deeply grooved and would be easy enough to climb, but climbing was boring. Besides, his ejection skill had been sitting his unused active slot since yesterday, begging for a field test. He jumped down off the earth badger, planted his feet, picked his line, and triggered ejection. A pressure detonated under both heels at once, and the world dropped out from under him. In less than 3 seconds, he shot up over 20 meters along the trunk and slammed into the bark face first. His hands found grooves on pure reflex while the rest of him decided whether to scream. He clung there with the bark scraping under his palms, his chest stinging, and the side of his forehead. His ears ring. He looks down and instantly regrets it. The badger looks tiny from up there, and the ground is incredibly far. He groans that the skill worked perfectly, but he definitely should have aimed a meter to the side of the trunk, instead of face-planting straight into it. Tough lesson, ejection means hitting the target, not stopping. He makes a mental note. He climbs the last few meters to the shell. It is over 3 meters long, yet entirely hollow and weightless, peeling away cleanly from the bark with a gentle tug. The system logs a common quality, fully intact blazing monkey cicada molt. This larval shell works as a decent ingredient for alchemy. Moving on. He slides across the massive trunk, prying free the next husk, then immediately moving to the next. 10 minutes later, he has stripped every single accessible shell off the tree. 14 of those shells are packed neatly into his expanding inventory, while the screaming overhead keeps going. His inventory now reads 17 out of 20 slots filled. That limit is starting to feel pretty stingy now. He quickly looks straight up, finding the massive blazing monkey cicada itself is a dozen meters above him on the trunk, screaming its lungs out. And the close-range racket is so completely deafening that without his active harmony skill, his eardrums would have started bleeding. Yet the monster ignores him entirely. To a beast that grows up to 50 meters, a 1.73-meter survivor is just a flea completely beneath notice and not even registering on its threat board, but that heavy overconfidence is about to cost it. Just watch. He creeps up within a meter, finds his angle, and lunges at the giant back. His muscular arms wrap tight around its head and shoulders, pinning it flat to the bark. The bug goes absolutely berserk, its wings buzzing in a frantic blur that does absolutely nothing against his entire body weight. Ironically, those flapping wings pry its own grip right off the trunk before his does. Suddenly, he and the cicada peel completely away from the bark together and begin to plummet. The cicada twists underneath him, letting off a panic spray from its rear. Down below, the loyal earth badger has already positioned itself with its mouth wide open, ready like an outfielder until the nasty spray hits. The badger instantly scrambles away in a hilarious, undignified panic, giving him teasing material for the next weeks. They hit the forest floor hard. The cicada takes the impact, which is the only real reason his ribcage is still in one piece. Several of its legs snap under the landing. Its chirp drops to a weak whistle as he rolls off, coughing hard and pressing a hand tightly to his chest until his breath finally returns. With his old human body, that fall would have shattered his spine, but with harmony and a Bing-level body, he only feels a tight ache and a sting where the bark has scraped him. He draws the black armor horn greatsword from his inventory, plants his heavy boot on the cicada's thorax to pin it, and drives the Blade down through its head, the greatsword slices through chitin and bone like a cleaver through a melon, burying itself half a meter into the dirt. Underneath, the cicada's massive wings flutter out one final time and then stop. He yanks the blade free, stows it, and activates decomposition art on the carcass, getting back two common quality, blazing monkey cicada wings, with a system note that they currently have no special use, but can be crafted into a simple paraglider with the right blueprint. Unfortunately, no treasure chest drops, which was a bit disappointing until he remembered the husks alone had. The earth badger trotted over and nudged him in the chest. With its nose sniffing him up and down like a worried parent, he rubbed its head, letting the beast know he was fine. The sky showed the sun had barely moved, so either he slept for 10 minutes flat or this world did not run on 24-hour cycles, making him lean toward a much longer day. Between the wheels in the morning, the centipede and snake battles, and the mantis and cicada clash, he must have burned through 6 or 7 blue star hours, he quietly muttered to absolutely no one that the system clock was clearly skewed. He decided to test it properly later, leaving the mystery hanging for now. He sat against the badger's side and ran a quick inventory review, counting it down. In his head, the azure carapace bracer, grayskull giant armor, and boulder treads were all equipped, then the black armor horn greatsword, the fireplace blueprint, 27 junk stones, 2 snake fangs, giant bread, and 2 pieces of snake meat, a half bottle of pure water, kundi burger, and the iron pickaxe, 2 sickles, 2 insect meats, 14 cicada molts, and 2 wings. 17 out of 20 slots, he grumbled, eyeing the math and wondering if expansion cards dropped from anything besides first kill chests. At this rate, he would run out of room before dusk. He leaned back against the badger, closing his eyes. Again, his novice fur clothes kept him cool, but the earth badger had no such luck. The beast puffed heavily even in the shade, meaning hunting through this brutal heat was a losing game. Better to just rest until the sun tilted down and the air cooled a bit. The cicadas overhead had quieted into a single, sleepy rhythm. A breeze rolled through the canopy with a long, dry rustle, and somewhere between one breath and the next, he drifted off. Again, he dreamed of a forest he had not earned yet, where he and his badger belonged to the land rather than just visiting. Beneath his dream, the badger snored on, their twin soundtracks weaving together into a single quiet lullaby that he stayed inside as long as it lasted. Soon, a different angle of light woke him up. The sun had crawled west, cooling the air into something he could actually move in. The forest had switched its soundtrack from cicadas to insects. He sat up and stretched, and the world came in sharper than before his nap, as if his eyes had been wiped clean. The earth badger was up, too, looking at him with patient round eyes that asked what was next. Time to find water. He climbed up onto the badger's back and pointed toward the edge of the giant forest. Diving deeper in without a clear landmark was an easy way to get lost, while skirting the perimeter would eventually run him into a river or lake. A forest this lush needed a water source close by, and a water source meant behemoth cubs coming to drink. That meant kills coming directly to him instead of chasing them down. The badger paced through the leaf carpet with a long, quiet stride, and the rustle under its paws was the loudest sound in the woods for now. The cicadas had given up for the day, and the insect chorus rose slowly as the light faded into evening. He caught himself remarking out loud that the forest truly came alive after sundown, just as a wet rushing sound rose somewhere off through the trees. The earth badger heard it before he could say a word, angling toward the sound on its own. Within minutes, the dense trees opened onto a massive river, so wide his first thought was that he was looking at a lake several hundred meters across. At least, to an adult behemoth, it would have been a ditch crossed in just 2 strides. To him, it was like the Han River dropped into a fantasy painting. The current was slow, the surface catching the late light in long copper ripples, and the muddy bank was tracked all over with footprints of cubs coming to drink. The badger went straight for the water and started lapping. He crouched beside the prince and rubbed his chin because a watering hole this busy was a permanent food source as long as he camped on the right side of it. Better than wandering. The plan grew on him as he worked it out, muttering approvingly to himself that this was exactly the kind of spot a smart survivor would set up shop near. The next step was a temporary shelter for the badger somewhere along the bank, not for himself. The foundation handled him. Water broke behind the badger before he finished the thought. A giant crocodile Head came up out of the river in a hard rising arc, jaws open, aimed at the back of the earth badger's skull. He shouted a warning the badger did not need because the badger had already pivoted with that liquid efficiency it kept hiding under its lazy expression, and instead of getting bitten, the badger bit the crocodile clean across its upper jaw, ripping the whole front of it out of the water and flinging it overhead in a tumbling arc. The body slammed down onto the gravel 10 meters behind the badger, lying there stunned, all its leverage and weight suddenly working against it on land. The badger did not wait. It pounced onto the crocodile's back, planting its hind feet on the spine, and started hammering down with both forepaws in a frenzied drumming barrage that flattened the head with every single strike. The crocodile wailed and thrashed and accomplished nothing because the predator that ate snakes for fun had decided that the ambush was a personal insult and the lesson would be delivered in full. He almost felt bad for the beast, almost. He aimed the giant beast encyclopedia technique at the crocodile while it was still being beaten. The readout came up as turtle belly giant crocodile, strength Bing level peak. Bloodline giant fierce beast, 2 talents named aquatic great strength and turtle. Crocodile bloodline, 3 skills named frenzied strangulation, thick-skinned and water softness enhancement, danger level high. The description noted that turtlebelly giant crocodiles lived in rivers, lakes, and swamps, and that adult grew anywhere from 1 to 150 meters, their power generally at D level, with a handful reaching D level peak, carrying a trace of the giant mutated beast. Turtle crocodile bloodline, and that leather merchants paid premium prices for their hides. The notation also explained that peak rank meant a beast capable of breaking through to the next tier at any moment, which was why only peak got flagged on the readout. Danger level high for him, danger level laughably low for the badger on dry land. In the water, the math would have inverted, but the badger had hauled the fight onto its turf inside 2 seconds, the wailing under its paws dropped to a thin rasp, and a few drumming beats later, the crocodile's jaws fell open and the body sagged still. A treasure chest dropped right beside the carcass. The badger climbs off its kill and shakes off the water. It shoots him a smug look, clearly complaining about his terrible ambush strategy. He rubs its head and praises it before walking over to check the crocodile. Its head is completely flattened paper thin, but the body looks completely fine. And getting an undamaged, intact hide is exactly what he wanted from this fight. He asks the badger if it wants any of the meat, but it just shakes, its head looking stuffed and completely uninterested, so he drops decomposition art on the corpse and waits. The panel logs the harvest as complete. He gets 1 giant crocodile hide and 1 piece of meat, along with 1 piece of premium turtle belly, giant crocodile tail meat. The hide is rated as rare quality, making it prime stock for leather armor. The kind of stock a merchant would love. The meat is just common, standard table food, but that tail meat is the real rare prize. It grants a permanent constitution boost to whoever eats it, while also accelerating the growth of any behemoths. Every merchant wants this. Suddenly, a wet dripping sound catches his immediate attention. Looking down, the earth badger has its nose pointed right at that massive, 3-meter slab of tail meat in his hand, and a pool of drool is already gathering at its feet. He grins at the cub. So you suddenly are not so full anymore. This meat smells too good. The badger lets out a small, impatient whine, and he tosses the slab right to it. The beast catches it midair, drops flat on the gravel, and tears into the feast with the pure satisfaction of a hungry beast. He then turns his attention to the treasure chest, the system label, calls it exquisite black iron, the exact same tier he had pulled from that centipede earlier, placing it 3rd on the quality ladder. He rubs his palms together, praying to the goddess of luck for a major win, because who would not? This crocodile was an elite-level beast, so this chest should hold great loot. He pops the lid, revealing 3 glowing items. First is an eye protection visor, an excellent special tool for clear underwater sight, crafted from the crocodile's own eyes. The description notes it is not useful for behemoths, but highly useful for humans, which fits his exact situation since he can barely open his eyes underwater on a good day, and this river is far from clean. He quickly stashes it. The second item is a serrated axe, an uncommon weapon, forged directly from the teeth of the giant crocodile, carrying special effects that boost woodcutting and cause deep, bleeding wounds. The heavy tool is nearly 1.5 meters long, featuring jagged teeth, Set into a curved handle, it looks incredibly intimidating, absolutely wild. And he nods, realizing a felling axe that doubles as a brutal weapon is by far the most practical thing he has acquired so far. The third item is a rare honeycomb charcoal blueprint, learnable at a manufacturing station. A quick system note reveals that this exact station is unlocked once the base foundation upgrades to level 1. It seems the system is dropping early hints about upgrades. A useful sneak peek he is more than happy to take. That makes 3 incredible pulls. 2 out of 3. The goddess of luck Mama was actually listening to him for a change. Suddenly, 2 system announcements punch across the sky right after each other. The first reveals that more than 5% of all survivors have now killed a behemoth cub, and the chat channel will open in 1 hour as a special celebration milestone. Right after that, the second system notification announces that the survivors actually managed to hit this milestone. Single day, rewarding every single survivor on the battlefield with a black iron treasure chest. The messages repeat 3 times, so absolutely nobody can miss it. Just like that, a black iron chest pops directly into his inventory next to everything else. He clicks his tongue, doing the quick math on billions of active survivors. Getting a free chest each is a level of system generosity that feels downright absurd, but he's not about to argue with a free chest. The label reads plain black iron with no prefix, so he cracks it open right on the spot. 2 items fall out. The first is heavy strike, an excellent quality passive skill at level 1 out of 2, granting a massive 1.5 times damage boost on the target. The system calls it a very ordinary skill with nothing much to say. That is an unusually humble note from the system. However, running a passive on a beast that specializes in passive talents is never ordinary. That special talent doubles the effect, turning this into a 2% chance for a massive triple damage hit. Without wasting time, he slaps the skill book against the Earth Badger's flank, triggering a prompt asking if he wants to teach the skill, showing 92% compatibility between the Badger and book. He confirms instantly because a doubled passive is just too good to pass up. He also makes a quick mental note that this system actively tracks compatibility between species and skills, which prevents fire beasts from getting stuck learning useless ice attribute moves. The second item is a rare quality water attribute crystal, glowing soft river blue. It purifies water, and a system note adds that it can feed water attribute behemoths their energy. The description says these water attribute crystals are products of crystal veins with endless applications. He rolls it between his fingers and grins because it reads exactly like spirit stones from cultivation novels. He remembers boosting clients through novels filled with these for 300 chapters. He pockets the crystal, climbs back onto the Earth Badger, and points it toward the tree closest to the riverbank. His plan is to settle here for the next stretch. A fresh water source is 10 seconds away at full badger speed, with a steady stream of behemoths coming to drink, and a giant tree to hollow for shelter. Keeping them safe, he pats the trunk, which feels hard as stone. The badger looks at him with a confused tilt of its head. He tells the beast he plans to dig a tree hole designed just for its size, asking if it has grown once again. The badger puffs up proudly at that, after eating that crocodile tail meat. It is a full meter taller than this morning. Such growth in 2 hours is totally absurd. Seriously, that is some insanely broken beast growth. He is learning to stop being surprised. This massive jump in size means the tree hole must scale up, at least 20 meters of depth and a height that gives the badger room to stand. Luckily, these giant trees have trunks over 10 meters across, so the geometry actually works. He pulls out the new. He raised his serrated axe and took his first swing at the bark. The blade slid in like it was carving cold butter. He blinked at the clean cut, took another swing, then another, and the wood gave up without complaint. Within 2 minutes, he had outlined a doorway about 3 meters wide and 10 high. That was the rough mouth of the shelter, and now came the actual hollowing. The Earth Badger walked up, watching him work for a few seconds, and then casually swiped a forepaw at the trunk. A massive chunk of wood blasted out of the wall in one strike. He smacked his forehead and laughed at himself. The beast claws on a normal tree made his axe looked totally useless. The badger was easily 100 times faster, and he had been planning to chip away by hand. Talk about a massive facepalm. He waved the badger forward and let it dig while he followed behind, smoothing the edges with the Serrated axe since claws that size were the wrong tool for fine finish work, in less than 4 minutes the badger had carved out a cavern. He finished trimming a minute later, the final shelter measured roughly 40 meters deep, 30 wide, and a hair over 10 high. The height was set to give the badger standing clearance. The rest of the geometry was oversized simply because they had the space. The walls were rough and striped, looking more like a wooden cave than carpentry, and he loved it. He clapped the badger on the shoulder and told the beast they would be staying here for a while, and the badger gave its low, pleased roar. The floor was uneven and splintered, though, and a loyal beast deserved far better than slivers in its paws. He called the badger out, and they walked the leaf carpet outside, where he scooped up armfuls of giant leaves into a heap, loading them onto the badger's broad back. He planned to take the whole bundle to the river to wash, dry them in the evening air, and then spread them across the cavern floor as a mat. The sky lit up a third time as they reached the bank, announcing that the chat channel was officially open. The system really repeated itself like they could not hear. He glanced up at the scrolling, glowing line and then just kept washing leaves. The river current did most of the work anyway, and he was not in. And he rushed to plug into a billion-strong global chat with hands full of foliage. He was totally alone out here, no team to coordinate with, no one waiting. The chat channel could wait until the leaves were spread and his loyal badger was safely tucked into its new home. The pile rinsed clean fast, and he scooped the wet leaves back onto the earth badger's flank, walking back at a slow, leisurely pace toward their tree hole. The massive beast trotted back to the tree hollow with the wet leaves piled across its shoulders, and he started flinging them off in armfuls the second they ducked under the canopy. He spread each one flat on the grass to dry overnight, 4 meters long and a meter wide, every one of them sorted earlier for size. The stack was thick enough to lay a double layer across the entire floor of the cavern tomorrow. The sky was already smudging toward dusk by the time the last leaf was down. Half an hour of light remained at most. He called the badger back inside and leaned against its flank to finally open the chat channel. The screen split into a Sector 7 global channel marked locked and a District 77 channel marked open. He tapped the open channel. A river of messages started scrolling past, but he held his eyes on the description first and read the manual through. Each survivor got. He notices the limits: 3 messages a minute with a 1-minute cooldown, plus 3 daily trades. Nothing carries over. Private chats have no limits and posts can be liked. They can also pin things using Behemoth coins, whatever those actually are. First-time users must pick a username within an hour, or the system forces their real name. Checking his profile, he finds his avatar and real name are already slapped on there. He decides to skip editing the avatar since the system locks it for now. For his handle, he types in Soki, the childhood nickname his grandma used to call him. He locks it in. She used to call him Kia too, but he absolutely hated that name. He had forced her to stop when he was 11, so Soki it is. The district population shows 10,000 out of 100,000. That is the survivor cap, meaning his current chat room is barely a tenth full. He watches the feed scroll by. Honestly, the chat is a total beautiful mess. Someone screams about the pitch black. Another complains their starter is a chicken. A guy groans that he got transmigrated mid-game wearing nothing but his boxer shorts. Only his free Nava sweater saved him from flashing the entire district. A woman wonders if the giant mouth that swallowed Bluest Star was actually a starter beast. Another replies that anything that massive must be at least Starry Sky level. Soon the whole feed explodes with players bragging about their beast bloodlines. The actual distribution becomes clear pretty quickly. Most people only have giant wild beasts. Or giant ferocious types. Only a tiny handful claim giant demonic beasts. Absolutely nobody has anything higher than that. The entire chat quickly comes to a consensus. Demonic is labeled the ceiling, and those players are crowned the district's big shots. Soki keeps his mouth shut. His own Earth Badger sits a full 2 tiers higher. It is a giant beast bloodline, the kind of insane summon the goddess boasted about. She said it was a 1 in 100,000 pull, broadcasting that is suicide. It would paint a massive target on his forehead, so he just sits back and watches. 100,000 people means up to 300,000 messages an hour. That is more than enough to bury any slip-ups. Suddenly, a wave of deep cold hits. He shivers in the hollow. Rubbing his arms, he glances up to check the system panel. It is 9 at night, 19 degrees Celsius. Just hours ago, it felt like 50. A drop from nearly 50 to under 20 in a single sundown is insane. It is brutal desert weather, and the chat realizes it at the exact same moment. Desperate players beg for fire. Some spend an hour rubbing sticks together for nothing but blisters. They have zero sparks to show for it. Meanwhile, one guy brags about his solution. He is snuggled deep into his starter beast's thick fur, feeling warmer than ever. Another survivor asks how on earth he typed out that cute little smiley face. That immediately sends the emoji feature in the bottom corner viral across the channel. Those in the north say their Nova fur coats plus heavy layers work just fine. Meanwhile, survivors paired with cold-blooded, snake-shaped beasts are complaining. There is absolutely no warm fur to cuddle with, and they are freezing miserably. Trade offers flood the screen. An excellent machete is put up. The owner wants equal-grade food. Then, a massive wave of pleas for basic supplies hits. People beg for water and food, 10 or 15 requests popping up all at once. Their first day clearly went horribly. Most have not even managed to kill a single cub. Their strength readouts show a giant question mark, and their starter beasts are labeled weak. He scrolled past the alerts, staring instead at the sheer overflow of food in his inventory. It was the kind of jackpot only a literal goddess of luck could hand to a survivor on day 1. A river ran 100 meters from his hollow. His badger was a walking heater he could lean against, and the basic beginner fur clothes the system. Handed him were flawless. He had not even bothered to look at them. Until right now, a small label noted they kept him cozy and safe. And would be taken back once his beginner period ended. Classic, of course they would. Cheapskate goddess mother, cheapskate inventory rules. Then an idea hit him. He pulled a second bottle of pure water out of his storage and placed it on the cold ground near the opening to chill. Then he went right back to scrolling. In storage frozen items state, keeping it in 19 degrees for a while would guarantee cold sips tomorrow when the heat climbed back to 50, 2 hours. Slipped away, he read posts from other survivors talking about giant beast cubs he had yet to encounter. Gradually, the global chat helped him piece together a decent mental map of this starting zone. Soon, heavy yawns crept up on him. He quickly slipped the cooled water bottle back into his storage mid-yawn, leaned heavily against the warm flank of his earth badger, and fell fast asleep. Within 10 seconds, when he finally woke up, pitch-black darkness surrounded him. He stared blankly, feeling surprisingly refreshed, before remembering he was stuck inside a tree. On an alien world, no, he had not gone blind. He opened the main chat to check the system clock. It read 34:30 at night. He rubbed his tired eyes, but the display still showed 34. Outside, the sky remained incredibly dark. Back on Blue Star, he usually crashed around 10 in the evening. 10 hours of sleep should have put him at 8 in the morning. Yet the system clock was already past 34, and dawn was nowhere in sight. This world had a different cycle. The goddess's starting zone ran on its own clock, leaving him completely clueless on when the sun would rise. The chat confirmed his suspicions. Everyone was complaining. Their internal biological clocks insisted it was morning, but the sky looked like midnight. Messages kept flooding in about the 34-hour mark, confirming they were not on Blue Star time. Meanwhile, 2 players had been ambushed in the dark, but their starter beasts helped them fight back, leaving them with only minor scratches. One was attacked by a leopard-like beast, but their companions' absolute defense refused to break. Trade requests were already rolling in for fresh water, food, and stone. One tragic post even described a guy who got clawed by his own beast, barely dragging himself inside his base before passing out completely. He looked over at his own earth badger, which was snoring softly against his back, and decided it was being a very good boy. He kept reading until the sky began to turn gray, the clock hitting 35:59 right as full daylight flooded his hollow. He rubbed his chin, calculating that a single day here lasted 36 hours, 12 longer than Blue Star, with temperatures already hitting 25. As the morning heat began to climb, he slid off the badger, stepping out of the tree hollow to stretch until every joint in his back popped. Sleeping curled against thick fur all night had left his muscles feeling stiff. So a quick round of basic exercises got his blood flowing again. Finally, time for breakfast. He opened up his system inventory and began scanning the item slots. Treads, a black armor horn, a greatsword, a serrated axe, 27 junk stones, 2 grayskull giant belly snake fangs, the giant bread, and 14 blazing monkey cicada molts, 2 blazing monkey cicada wings, the kunji burger, the iron pickaxe, and 2 Sickles 1 snake meat, 1 damaged snake meat, and a half bottle of pure water, 2 insect meats, the complete turtle belly giant crocodile hide, and 10 pieces of turtle belly giant crocodile meat, the low-grade water attribute. Crystal and the eye protection visor, 19 of 20 slots are filled with the fireplace blueprint and the honeycomb charcoal blueprint stashed in the grass hut. Overnight to free up the grid, with the bracer and grayscale armor equipped. He had bread, the burger, snake meat, insect meat, and crocodile meat. Only veggies were missing. Luckily, the burger had some lettuce in it, saving that burger for last. Then, the badger rolled over with a low roar and shook itself awake. He patted its broad head, saying, they were heading to the river to wash up, eat breakfast, and then hunt. It nudged his chest with its wet nose and trotted right at his heel. The river was 30 seconds at badger speed. He scrubbed his face, rinsed his mouth, and rubbed his teeth with his index finger, calling it good, while the badger plunged its head under and drank. As if draining a pool, when it lifted its head, it shook the water off in a wide arc, making him jump sideways, laughing at it for almost soaking him. It roared sheepishly, then made it very clear with another growl that its stomach was empty. He pulled the regular and damaged snake meat out of his inventory, a clean kilogram and a damaged 200 grams, and tossed both into its mouth. The badger swallowed it down in 3 bites, nodding its content, for now. Little while, for him, breakfast was the giant bread, a loaf meant to feed normal survivor for 3 full days, but he was no longer ordinary. Harmony had multiplied his stats and his appetite right alongside them, and he gnawed through a third of the loaf before he felt full, turning 3 days of food into just 1 day. His mouth felt cottony when he lowered the loaf. After that much bread. That was the deal. The chilled water came out and he cracked the cap. The first swallow was glacier cold. He groaned with absolute pleasure. Last night's freezer trick had worked beautifully. He sealed the cap, sliding the bottle straight back into inventory before any of that chill could leak out, and decided not to touch it again until the afternoon heat peaked. He had a river right there. That bottled water was rare, and rare meant rationed. The sun was already pushing 37 degrees. His novice fur clothes balanced him at the edge of its threshold, and the grayscale giant armor's unique cooling property took another notch off. The combination kept him functional in heat that would otherwise have laid him completely flat. He muttered that without scale armor he would already have been done for, but the badger answered him with a low warning growl from its throat, snapping his attention back to the trees. He dropped onto its back, staying low as he scanned the brush. A wild boar stepped out of the leaf carpet toward the water, tongue lolling, easily 8 meters at the shoulder. Smaller than his badger, but far bigger than anything he would have approached on. Blue star. He started to write it off as a normal boar until he saw its feet. The paws were completely feline, lion claws on a pig's face. He aimed the giant beast. His scanning technique reveals a pig-headed lion cub at strength rank Bing. This peak bloodline giant fierce beast possesses 2 talents, thick-skinned and roar, alongside skills like assault charge, agile run, fatal claw, and drowsy stomp. Danger level high. The description calls it a lion with a pig head. Common in the wild, adults reach 130 meters at Sean peak strength. With rare beasts breaking into D rank, their hide and tusks are highly valuable. These rare materials are highly prized by merchants, since peak status means a beast is capable of breaking into hang rank, just like that giant crocodile had shown. Most of its skills seem ordinary, but Fatal Claw catches his eye. He taps it for details, finding an excellent passive skill at level 1 out of 5, giving a 2 times damage bonus and unhealable bleeding wounds. The smug description even boasts that its claws will never grow dull. Better yet, passive specialization will double everything his Earth badger learns. That 2 times bonus scales to 4 times, and that is just level 1. He wants that skill on his badger by noon. Right now, the pig-headed lion is strolling down a pressed flat beast path that has clearly worn into the ground over weeks of habit. It is a clear sign that this entire riverbank is its private hunting ground where nothing else dares to cross. Comfort has made it lazy. He pats the badger, pointing at a clump of brush along the trail, and they slide into ambush. The pig-headed lion approaches at the same lazy pace. It twitches its neck as it passes their hide, frowning at a sudden chill, but ignores it. Honestly, talk about overconfidence. Walking in its mind, absolutely nothing on this beach can touch it, except for the giant turtle-belly crocodile in the river, or the shadow crow up in the canopy. He claps his hands. The earth badger launches forward, dropping its entire weight onto the pig-headed lion's spine, pinning its head to the dirt under. One massive paw and biting its neck, the pig-headed lion is completely shocked stupid. For a second, forgetting to even cry out before the heavy pressure on. Its neck pinches a nerve, making the cub let out a long, mournful howl. It thrashes against the badger's heavy weight, getting absolutely nowhere. The badger outclasses it completely. Outmatching and overpowering the beast, the bite tightens. He stands up on the badger's back, draws his black armor horn greatsword, jumps down and walks over. With his blade reversed, praising the cub for a perfect ambush, he drives the greatsword straight through the pig-headed lion's skull, pinning it deep into the dirt. It twitches twice, goes still, and look, a chest drops. Nearby, he pulls his blade free, wiping the gore on the grass, and claps his badger's flank to release the bite. The giant beast lets go, standing over its kill, staring hungrily down at the fresh carcass with obvious drool. Since lunch was just dry snake bites, he chops off the head with two swift strokes, rolling the body to his badger to snack on while he works. The hide and tusks are the only valuable parts, so the badger gets the rest. His decomposition art on the head awards him 2 rare quality pig-headed lion tusks with a piercing effect, plus 2 processed premium pig ears weighing 1 kilogram each, a rare quality ingredient. The item panel describes the tusks as prime sword crafting materials, with effects making them 3 times. These are way more valuable than basic ones because crafting gear with special effects materials gives the weapon a 50% chance to inherit that trait. He laughs at the air, asking the goddess of luck if this counts as a rare. Among rares, the system panel for this premium material shows it is the same grade as a basic ingredient, but specially enhanced by the decomposition process. That eating it gives a small permanent constitution boost, and that processed materials sell for double the price of raw ones. His decomposition skill creates a hidden upgrade tier. He glances over at the little badger and groans, realizing that the snake meat he fed the creature 30 minutes ago likely had that exact same processed bonus, blindly wasted on a hungry cub. He tucks both tusks away safely and turns to the treasure chest. The label reads, Lucky Bronze Treasure Chest, a bronze quality chest dropping 2 to 4 items. The lucky prefix makes him check his current title bonuses, and the blessing of the goddess of luck has quietly reset overnight, which perfectly lines up with the 36-hour day rolling over at the 3600 mark. 1 daily blessing is available now. Stroking his chin, he wonders if he can apply this blessing directly to the chest. He taps the blessing of the goddess of luck onto the lucky bronze chest, but the system snaps back that ownership of the chest is not his and the blessing cannot be applied. He stares at the notification for a long moment. The chest remains system-owned right up until he cracks the lid open, and only the loot inside transfers. Shaking his head, he saves the blessing for the evening and pops the chest open. 3 items lie inside. First is a bronze giant arm. It is rare giant beast gear with a lightness effect tag. The description notes it provides both defense and offense when equipped by a Behemoth. He turns the piece over in his hands and chuckles. Behemoth gear means there is a whole second equipment market on this battlefield that he had not even known existed, and the little badger is about to get its first piece of armor. He sets it down and looks at the badger, who is still happily chewing on the torso of the pig-headed lion, saving it for later. The second item is a jade bamboo gourd, an uncommon quality item holding 10 liters of water with the unique effect of transforming the water inside over roughly 3 days into something called jade bamboo clear liquid. The item description calls this liquid a fruit wine-like beverage that is not actually alcoholic. The gourd looks nothing like a typical gourd, being just a bamboo segment carved from jade, but 10 liters of portable water and a slow automatic brew of mystery juice is a stupidly good item to carry around. The third reward is a rare treasure map, a special item recording a hidden chest with a cheeky description stating that what you actually dig up depends entirely on luck. He unrolls it across his palm and stares as a topographical map blossoms open on the parchment. A treasure chest icon marks the dig site, and 3 skull icons sit between him and his goal, 2 guarding the chest and 1 blocking the entrance path. A small green dot blinks near the edge of the map. As he shifts his weight to take a step, the dot crawls with him, proving he is at the very bottom of the entire region. The chest sits deep inside what looks like a giant forest, and Those 3 skull markers mean 3 beasts strong enough to stand in his way. Between him and the treasure, he rolled up the map and glanced at his earth badger, which was currently buried deep inside the pig-headed lion's gut, shredding the massive beast, and reducing the 8-meter carcass to barely a third while he read 3 item description panels. He complained about its massive, growing appetite. The happy beast just roared back with a mouthful of meat. The lion's hide was completely shredded. It was past saving the fur total junk, but those tusks, those were secured, and that was all he really wanted. The badger trotted off to wash the blood off while he sorted his slots, placing the bronze giant arm into the grid. That took up 2 slots, but the gourd and map were small enough to fit right in. He needed to dump some heavier gear first. His grass hut was completely safe. It could survive almost anything. Even if the badger took heavy hits, his stash would remain untouched. He patted his pet's flank and instantly stepped into the pocket dimension. Inside the hut, he unpacked sickles, insect meat, and monster parts. He cleared out 14 blazing monkey cicada molts and 2 wings. Then came 27 junk stones and some massive snake fangs. He added the complete turtle belly giant crocodile hide and water crystals. And finally, those lion tusks that freed up 9 whole slots. But looking at the messy pile of gear on the floor really bothered him. A wooden shelf would easily organize this mess, so he resolved to build one. He resolved to build one this afternoon and quickly stepped back outside. By the river, wet, impatient, and fully ready to roll, he pulled out his jade bamboo gourd and dunked it underwater. The filling process was pretty slow. Gurgling slowly past the rim, it took almost 2 full minutes to finally draw a full 10 liters. He sealed the cap and stowed it. 3 days from now, it would turn into pure jade bamboo liquid. Talk about a refreshing drink. But first, the badger climbed out and shook its wet coat violently, sending a massive spray that forced him to retreat. He told the beast they were heading back. The badger fell in behind him, its damp coat steaming slightly in the heat. The walk back was short. The chat panel showed it was almost 4 in the afternoon, which on a 36-hour day meant the noon heat was finally fading. He left his pet to bake dry in a sunny clearing and went to collect the massive leaves he set out yesterday. They had dried nicely, stiff, and warm from the sun, so he scooped up massive armfuls into the cave and spread them 2 layers thick across the 40 by 30-meter wooden floor. After 20 minutes of hard work, the entire cavern floor was beautifully carpeted and soft. No more splinters. Now, the badger could lounge around comfortably without hurting its paws, and he could easily stroll around barefoot. Still, his mind kept wandering back to that storage shelf. He scouted around for some lumber and spotted a fallen branch. Nearby, it was over 1 meter long and nearly 6 meters thick at the base. By the standards of these massive giant trees, this was just a twig. But for a normal guy, that's enough lumber to build a mansion. He dragged the heavy log back to the clearing and drew his trusty serrated axe. The serrated axe sliced through the dead wood just as easily as living bark, meaning this felt more like a quick carving project than actual hard chopping. He spends an hour hacking away, roughing out 4 legs and 2 side panels, 3 shelves, and a back brace before knocking the pieces together. Against a tree trunk, with no nails, he uses his palm, brute force. It is rough, stripy, and completely ugly, yet he is incredibly proud of it. He tips off the sawdust and hoists the creation onto his shoulder, and walks over to his giant badger, lazily sunbathing on the grass. Its fur is already half dry. The beast lifts its head as he approaches, lets out a low, welcoming roar, then flops back down, a very lazy beast. He pats its flank and steps into his foundation space, shelf and all. Passing through the entry portal is a breeze, which is a massive relief. But the actual door to his grass hut, that is a different story. The shelf is 1 meter wide, and the doorway is barely 2/3 of that. He tries to angle it, twist it, and shimmy it through the opening. After his 3rd failed attempt, he finally admits he made a stupid mistake. The door problem completely slipped his mind. Honestly, he was just too careless. The shelf is not going inside unless he upgrades his home first. He leans the structure against the outer wall and checks his system panel. He needs to see the upgrade requirements. The screen blinks to life. It displays a common quality grass hut, 3 by 2 meters in size. There are currently no active effects, but a tip suggests adding special structures to drastically improve his giant beast's attributes and base abilities. The screen also shows the upgrade conditions and a warning about combat zones. He cannot enter or exit his foundation space while engaged in active combat. He gently taps the screen to view the actual materials he needs. The system asks for 9 pieces of wood and 9 pieces of stone. Luckily, his builder class has knocked 10% off the total requirement. Sounds incredibly cheap, but of course there is one massive catch. He has not harvested a single piece of system-accepted wood or stone yet. Those 27 junk chips from the riverbank definitely do not count. Carving up a random fallen trunk like a notch in the wall will not register. The system expects him to fell an entire tree from root to crown. For these giant kindergarten trees, that means hundreds of meters of wood. Chopping a meter-thick trunk takes half a day. His novice window is closing. Why waste his precious time when he has a treasure map instead? That map points to something far more exciting than simple firewood. So he leaves the shelf outside, teleports out of his foundation, and brushes the sawdust off his hands. The shelf can wait. He cracks open the treasure map and looks at the blinking green dot. The distance to the first skull marker is roughly a 2-hour hike. That is 2 hours at his badger's riding speed without trouble. He hopes this parchment survives the trip because it has another great use. If it stays intact, he can use it as a regional map. Of the local area, he tells the badger to wake up. They are going treasure hunting. The beast lets out a long-suffering groan and climbs to its feet. He swings onto its back and rides off. He pointed where the map directed, sitting cross-legged on the warm leaves. Piled across the badger's back, he kept the map balanced on his knee, scanning the brush. The panel header rolled past 30 degrees and kept climbing, reading 37. Just after 6 in the morning, which on a 36-hour day meant noon would be. Hideous, his body was not sweating, and neither was the badger's. 2 days ago, in the exact same weather, the beast was panting. This place changes a body fast. The badger picked up a sound first, its ears swiveling forward and dropping low into a crouch without breaking stride. He flattened across its spine and looked where it was staring. A giant red rooster was strolling through the tall grass 30 meters out, 5 meters tall at the chest with a crown of orange, flame-shaped feathers riding on its head like a paper hat that had caught fire. 3 hens trailed behind it. He swallowed hard because those massive drumsticks were the size of his whole leg. The badger flattened its belly to the ground and started crawling forward with a stalker's patience. He had not realized it. He lay flat on its back and let it run the approach since its hunting instincts were sharper than his commands by an enormous margin, and one bad signal from him could blow the ambush. He aimed the giant beast encyclopedia technique at the rooster. The system readout came back as red-bellied, flame-crusted chicken, a juvenile at peak strength, possessing a giant magic beast bloodline. His talents included flame crest fireballs, low-level fire immunity, and claw strikes, along with scurrying wing slaps, continuous attacks, and an iron beak, danger level high. They are common across most regions, with adults reaching 15 meters and TN level strength. The flame crest was the single most valuable part. The hens scanned the same, except with no crest, weaker stats, and a low individual danger level. And honestly, a juvenile peak beast that could throw fire was the exact skill he wanted on his badger by lunch. The grass was nearly 3 meters tall, and the crawling earth badger stayed completely under cover while he drew his black armor. Horn greatsword. The plan was simple: take a hen on the opening swing with ejection, let the badger target the rooster, and mop up the rest together. At about 20 meters, the badger stopped. Any closer risked the birds catching its outline through the stems, and 20 meters was fine since ejection forward carried him much further than its measly 2-meter vertical range. He shifted into a crouch, lined his stance, called ejection in his head, and felt the skill snap loose. Under him, the badger pounced in the same heartbeat, moving faster than he could run, even with ejection boosting him. One hen barely managed a confused cluck before its entire head separated on the backswing of his greatsword. The other 2 hens froze, and one was so terrified she laid an egg right therein. The dirt, a massive egg, as long as his forearm, that rolled in the grass and came to rest, steaming gently. He landed, pivoted, and triggered ejection again at the nearest paralyzed hen, sweeping his greatsword across her neck on the way. Another head came clean off. The last hen finally remembered to run and immediately turned toward the rooster for help, only to look up and see the earth badger going to absolute town on her husband. She stopped dead, her beak wide open, then her head came off too. He flicked blood off the blade and frowned at the spot where she had been because she looked like she was about to do something. She was about to run but suddenly froze, strange, but not worth chasing. The giant rooster had already clocked the swift deaths of all three hens. Its raw fury shattered its own strength ceiling right there on the spot. Its Bing Peak status snapped directly into the legendary hang level in real time. This breakthrough was not just stats, its massive body began to swell. The bloodline surge pushed through its feathers as 5 mirrors shot past 10. Doubling in size, the explosive force bounced the earth badger away like a sneeze. The rooster did not even turn to fight the badger first, it just stared. Its decapitated hens lay there, and its eyes flared red, a blazing fireball began forming in its open beak. He raised his eyebrows at the show, but did not bother moving. The earth badger was already lurking behind it. A hang-level rooster turning its back on a wild beast to charge up. A fireball at him, whoever gave that bird its confidence was about to learn a lesson. The fireball was half-formed when the badger swung. One massive palm slapped the growing fireball clean out of its beak and snuffed it out completely. Then came the brutal claw barrage. Dozens of slaps landed in just 10 seconds, delivering heavy impact. Every blow staggered the giant bird until its eyes glazed over. By the third second, it had absolutely no idea which way was up. The badger shot him a disdainful look over its shoulder like it could not believe. The bird had even tried, then it clapped both paws on its temples in one devastating strike. Blood poured from all its facial orifices. The giant bird went down with a final soft cluck and stayed down. Of course it was dead. The badger straightened up over its fresh kill. Roaring with satisfaction at the open sky, lunch had finally arrived. The dead chickens dropped 3 treasure chests, 2 black iron and 1 bronze. Interestingly, that bronze chest carried a special prefix on its label that he would investigate in a minute. The badger settled beside the carcasses and watched him work, satisfied after eating its snake meat an hour ago. He crouched beside the nearest dead hen and plucked a feather. The vibrant red feather came loose easily, so he checked its readout. He fully expected a rare, high-grade result, only for the panel to say it was pure junk. He sat back on his heels, frowning at the screen. The survival guide itself had labeled this an excellent crafting resource. Maybe using his decomposition art was the only proper harvesting method. But that made no sense either. That skill was highly restricted. He had won it from a lucky roulette spin. Surely the system would not lock basic loot behind a draw most survivors would miss. There was only one place to seek answers. He opened the district chat and posted a question, asking why his beast's kills yielded junk. He wanted to know if any of the big shots could explain. The replies flooded in within 2 seconds, completely ignoring his actual question. The first veteran apologized for not knowing, then immediately asked whether he was actually a girl based on his handle. The very next user screamed that a real girl had finally appeared, leaving a creepy leering laugh. He begged the other 2 to behave before they scared the girl off. Then Soki sent him a friend request, triggering a massive fight over who he rejected first. They even flamed a 4th user for sounding over 40 while sweet-talking him. The whole feed descended into a massive brawl over his supposed femininity within 10 messages. So he rubs his temple, completely exhausted, and asks the empty air a simple question. Is his username really that feminine, especially since the system displays profile avatars? Surely that should settle it. He taps over to check his own profile and freezes. Silence. The system stamped him with a long-haired version of his face. It makes him look so insanely pretty, he could easily model for a magazine cover. Nobody would even question it. Frankly, his actual buzz cut barely keeps him looking masculine. He barely looks like a young man, and the edit button is locked. The chat room will keep assuming he is a girl unless he manually corrects every single message. There is no way he is doing that. He just rolls his eyes instead. Chalking it up to the goddess playing a sick joke, he asks everyone to stay focused. Within 30 seconds, a completely new user pings the feed with a laugh. It looks like everyone is ganging up on that complaining old geezer again. He is always nagging everyone about respecting elders and begging for handouts. Despite being over 40 years old, meanwhile, other survivors chime in to share their relief. They are incredibly grateful. Their families got brought into their foundations with them. But a lonely voice asks why everyone else has company while he is completely alone. That hits hard. A chatty regular steps in to explain the system. He reveals the family system rules he figured out after monitoring the feed all day. Families with kids under 18 get one parent placed in the same foundation. If there are multiple kids under 10, the whole family gets brought along. The same logic applies to the elderly, with anyone over 50 bringing their family. Their bases are much larger than a solo survivor's, and households of 5 or more get a base beast plus a guardian beast, while adults between 18 and 50 are solo. Suddenly, the orphanage comes back to Soy's mind. The headmaster's kids, the ones he visited every single afternoon for years, are almost all under 18 and have no parents. Where did they end up? He tags the chatty regular directly. His display name is a ridiculously long pseudonym that translates roughly to "I am not the all-knowing scholar." So he just calls him Scholar to keep his sanity, then asks a question. Does he know how the orphans were arranged without their parents there? A bunch of other users second the question, flooding the feed with agreements. Scholar laughs, apologizes for missing his earlier ping, and answers properly. Younger orphans get assigned to a single adult survivor from their orphanage. The pairing depends on intimacy ratings quietly tracked by the system. Nobody in his region has refused because the benefits are just too good. It makes the assignment worth taking, but only triggers for those over 25. That explains why Soy received no prompt, since he is not 25 yet. However, the older volunteers at the orphanage definitely did. The kids he used to visit are probably with them now. Suddenly, someone else pipes up that the system paired her with 2 little sisters, aged 2 and 5. To make things crazier, the system paired her with 2 little sisters, aged only 2 and 5. Her package came with a child growth device she absolutely could not have managed without. Fortunately, she had a stack of foundation items that easily covered the extra load. He told her this was the absolute best outcome under the circumstances. All-Knowing messaged him once again to circle all the way back to his original question. The contact had not forgotten the question, but the answer was incredibly boring. Players needed skinning knives to properly harvest valuable beast materials. Without the tool, you absolutely needed a corresponding life skill to get anything of value. Otherwise, the system simply rated everything as useless junk. He thanked the contact, closed their chat, and checked his trusty iron pickaxe. This excellent quality tool offered a 1% chance of double harvest while mining veins. Every single strike yielded 1 ore, confirming exactly how tools worked. If you had no tool and no skill, you got nothing. This realization made his decomposition art skill far more valuable than he initially believed. It did not just replace the tool. It processed the materials instantly, leaving them finished and semi-prepared. They were completely ready for cooking or crafting right away. Standing tall over the carcass of the larger hen, he triggered his decomposition art. The system panel pinged him 10 half-kilogram cuts of chicken breast. He also got 2 processed drumsticks and 20 red-bellied feathers. All of the cuts were excellent quality. The drumsticks came out fully processed and the size of whole legs. His mouth began watering before he even finished reading the screen. Without wasting a single moment, he triggered the decomposition art on the second hen. This one dropped 10 more chicken breasts and 2 processed wings. It also gave him 2 more large drumsticks and 20 feathers. The third hen broke apart quite differently, dropping a single complete plucked and processed bird. Along with another 20 feathers, the skill showed no half measures. Talk about hitting the jackpot, he told himself out loud he was officially rich. Tonight he would celebrate by cooking up one of those giant drumsticks. He decided not to roast the whole hen because that would be wasteful. Instead, he happily walked over to the giant rooster carcass to trigger his skill again. It dropped 2 massive processed drumsticks, plus 2 kilogram-sized chicken breasts and 100 rare feathers. He also got a rare flame crest from the beast. The system panel showed that eating this meat would permanently boost his physical strength. The rare quality feathers offered valuable fire immunity and enhancement. This made them expensive crafting materials for magical tools. But get this, the glowing flame crest itself was easily the single most valuable prize. It was uncommon quality, which sat a tier above rare. It featured intermediate fire enhancement and a fireball spell effect. The system description called it the single most valuable material this entire species could produce. It was hard to collect without damaging its magical properties, but it could graft a powerful fireball skill onto any tool. This was exactly the kind of legendary power he had hoped to pull from this fight. Now his inventory was practically bursting, with 10 brand new stacks of items. In his existing load, this left him with only 7 empty slots, 3 short of his actual goal. Luckily, the math worked out if he dropped the bulky materials into his little grass hut. However, the hen and rooster feathers refused to stack because the rooster feathers measured nearly 3 or 4 meters each, carrying a totally different color and quality grade. Meanwhile, the hen feathers were just over a meter long and far softer in tone, so he pulled out the bronze giant arm and walked over to the earth badger to equip it. The bracer wrapped around its left paw and grew up its leg in one smooth, liquid motion, settling as a sleek bronze-plated arm stretching from claw to shoulder. The massive badger stared at its newly armored paw with a completely stunned tilt of the head. It moved the heavy limb in slow, experimental arcs and, roaring with satisfaction as the armor plate flexed cleanly with its shifting muscle, freeing up 1 inventory slot. Instantly, he teleported straight back into the grass hut, stashing the jade bamboo gourd in his outside cabinet before placing the boulder treads, the protective eye visor, and his trusty iron pickaxe onto the handmade wooden shelf. He leaned back, easily freeing up 4 more inventory slots and, leaving 12 empty cabinet slots to absorb his massive chicken haul, he teleported back outside, quickly gathering the chicken meat and feathers scattered on the ground, and stuffed everything into his private inventory in one quick sweep, leaving only 2 slots. Those massive rooster feathers simply refused to fit inside his hut without folding them, and he absolutely refused to risk ruining a rare, perfectly intact feather that needed to stay whole, so they remained in his bag while the hen feathers went straight into the cabinet. Next, he turned toward 3 treasure chests lined up on the grass. Reaching for the first black iron, he cracked both of those chests open at once, and 5 items instantly popped out. Talk about hitting the absolute jackpot on this run. The first drop was a rare quality spatial storage cabinet, an incredibly prized find. It featured 6 spatial slots, with each slot capable of holding 99 identical items. The item description noted that even the most common spatial gear ran incredibly expensive on the open market. He chuckled, wondering if the goddess of luck was listening to his prayers. This cabinet was a tiny 30 by 30 centimeter box pocket shelf that swallowed nearly 100 item stacks. The second item was a magic feather duster of excellent quality, specifically designed for dust removal techniques. The system panel cheerfully noted that it cleaned dust incredibly quickly and could only clean dust. Still, a hyper-focused magic item was great, considering how rare they usually were. He would happily take it. The third item was a gorgeous red-bellied flame crown cape. This excellent quality magic gear provided heat and low-level fire immunity, crafted carefully from leftover red-bellied flame feather scraps. Sleeping curled up against his earth badger for warmth had been workable, but hardly restful, and this cape completely solved that issue. The fourth item was a red-bellied flame-crested head feather. This rare gear granted a sweet low-level fire bonus, woven from feathers and flame vine silk to boost his elemental fire skills. The headpiece was honestly loud and ugly, but the combat buff was real and valuable. Finally, the fifth reward was a rare quality base extension card, a very special item. Its effect added +1 to his base area, a highly sought-after buff among players. Without wasting a single second, he used it. The system screen chimed back with success. In checking his foundation status, his grass hut had expanded to a sweet 4 by 3 meters. Even with the 3 by 2 expansion, the category remained common and the level was still 1. The upgrade cost was still 9 wood and 9 stone, but the floor was suddenly a third larger, allowing his shelf to easily fit inside. With no extra work, he shut the panel. Now for the final chest, the surpassing bronze. The label alone suggested the loot inside would easily beat the standard drops. When he slowly lifted the lid, 4 incredible items were sitting inside. A grand slam. He silently thanked the goddess of luck for her amazing taste. The first treasure was a massive capacity cabinet, a rare spatial item of epic quality with 10 slots, each holding up to 999 identical resources. It was a tier above standard storage, costing triple the usual market price. With both cabinets, he had secured 16 brand new slots and nearly 10,000 stack capacity from one single battle. The messy grass hut was finally going to look clean and organized for once. Next, a blazing red staff weapon of epic quality, granting a low-level fireball technique forged expertly from flame crest scraps and fire spiritual tree Branches, it instantly summons fireballs with an energy trigger, though he had zero energy in his body to feed the weapon, nor any clue how to get it, but the global chat had already mentioned some unique awakened survivors whose magical spells caused intense dizziness whenever they cast too many times. The general consensus was that some hidden mental energy was being drained, so the stats did exist, and the system would eventually let him unlock it, maybe through a future class. The next item, a simple chicken coop. A rare base building that hatches eggs, housing up to 4 chicken type creatures while taking up 3 square meters of foundation floor. True egg freedom. For a survivor who had just brutally decapitated 3 hens, with one laying an egg. Right on the way down, he turned to look at the half-meter egg still lying in the grass where the second hen had dropped it, nearly the size of a winter melon. Making an ostrich egg look like a tiny quail egg, this thing was absolutely huge. Hatchet number 4 was a transcender fishing rod, unique, excellent quality. This tool guaranteed he would never return empty-handed, providing a daily bait counter that resets every day. The description oddly called it the absolute lowest grade rod the creator had ever made, yet it was also his very first creation and the only rod from his collection to ever slip into the outside world. This incredible item was designed to catch highly bizarre things, though ironically, it could never seem to catch the actual fish he originally wanted. He held the rod up, feeling the light foreign bamboo in his hand. The transcender prefix was clearly no joke. Excellent quality on a unique item was likely underselling its real value. He muttered quietly to the rod, having no clue what strange items it would bring, but feeling incredibly excited to find out. This morning's chest haul was already paying him back several times over, even if he did not see another giant beast for 20 hours. He quickly sat in the grass and organized his inventory before losing track of his gear. His backpack used 10 of its 20 slots, holding basic essentials alongside 2 massive processed drumsticks for dinner and tomorrow's lunch. The wooden shelf inside the grass hut absorbed the leftover materials he did not need to carry. There were sickles, cicada parts, sharp snake fangs, massive lion tusks, and even heavy boulder treads, a jade bamboo gourd, a protective eye visor, and an iron pickaxe and feather duster. His storage cabinet, maxed out at 6 slots, filled with bulky crocodile hide, a blazing red staff, 2 blueprints, random junk stones, and a high-grade head feather. His capacity cabinet was also packed to 10 out of 10 with poultry. There were premium drumsticks, wings, and tender breast cuts, both raw and processed. He also had smaller wings, a whole processed hen, 60 hen feathers, 100 rooster feathers, and a rare flame crest. Finally, Soki stepped outside his grass hut, smug grin. His storage space swallowed it all up, leaving his personal pack with 10 open slots. He pulled out his treasure map, hopped onto the earth badger's back, and pointed toward the first skull icon. The beast took a step forward but suddenly halted because its heavy bronze forearm armor made its gait uneven. Trying something new, the badger made the bronze armor disappear, instantly smoothing its stride. The creature tested the trick again, making plates reappear, then vanish before happily trotting off with the bracer hidden. The system panel warned that hidden equipment lost its stats, but the badger could summon it instantly during a fight. Not bad. His map icon was slowly creeping toward the first skull marker. It would take another hour at this pace. Daily blessing from the goddess of luck was still waiting on his title screen, and he planned to use it right before the dig. A perfect plan. The massive loot buff would apply to his hidden treasure. Tomorrow's blessing would go to his powerful fishing rod, which was already his highest tier item. The scorching midday sun was pushing into the high 30s, and his novice fur coat and heavy grayscale armor kept his body temperature steady around 26 degrees. The direct heat still made him sweat, though, but this gear combo successfully kept heat stroke away, barely. Soki settled the treasure map on his knee and opened the global chat. He wanted to test out a specific feature he had barely touched yet. The virtual trade window. Occasionally, other survivors would post active listings in the regional feed. He only had 3 daily trades available with no rollover, which meant choosing wisely, but the perfect offer might just bring him a rare item he did not even realize he needed. Soki scrolled through the feed slowly. The active player count still stood at exactly 100,000. During this starter period, the wild cubs did not attack players unless provoked first. Because of that, no one in their district had died yet. and deaths were unlikely today unless someone starved on day 2. Then an interesting trade listing caught his eye. A player had posted an unknown blueprint and wanted to exchange it for 2 pounds of food and a single liter of water, requesting a direct message. A secret blueprint, intriguing. The seller had not revealed what it built, which was either a clever surprise or a clear warning that the item was completely useless. But Soki had plenty of extra food and water, plus 3 daily trades to burn. Making the gamble worth his time, he tapped the listing to send a direct message. The seller went by the name Yua, so Soki sent a polite greeting. Blueprint Yua had on offer, barely 10 seconds ticked by before she replied with an image. Soki could see for himself, adding that if he did not like the price, they could negotiate. An image popped up in the message, quickly unfurling into a glowing panel. The layout read, wooden bench furniture category, excellent quality. It can be learned at the crafting table to start crafting them anytime. Soki read it twice. He rubbed his chin, letting out a heavy sigh. No wonder this trade sat in the feed so long. It was waiting for him. To spot it, it was just a basic blueprint for a bench. Honestly, he could easily craft a dozen of those from a single dry branch. Yua pinged him again before he could write it off. Blueprint, she asked if he wanted it. Soki rubbed his chin. He decided to offer a price he would not regret, replying that the blueprint was nothing special, but he would trade 2 pieces of meat for it, but the river water would have to wait until he returned to the riverbank since he was far away. She agreed and asked to trade now. But Soki wanted to wait a few hours. 3 daily trades was his absolute limit. He was not about to burn 2 of his slots on a single split deal. The final offer stood at 2 pieces of insect meat and a barrel of water. Water was incredibly cheap. Soki could easily carve a much larger barrel. The trade feed already had plenty of other survivors selling water at normal prices. The river was massive, out of 100,000 survivors, a few thousand had likely stumbled on the river early on. Without the daily trade limit, selling water would have made him rich. Soki pulled the treasure map across his knee as they rode, the green dot close to the first skull marker. Soki patted his badger, slowing to an easy pace at the giant forest edge. The skull was just a short walk away. Soki could have skipped it, since the pair of guardians at the actual treasure site were the only mandatory fights, but his novice Grace was still active. Passing up a free yellow tier kill felt like leaving free money. Money on the table, he held the map flat on his palm, casting the blessing of the goddess of luck on it. The system asked if he really wanted to spend his blessing on the map. Soki confirmed. The parchment flared with a blinding golden glow for 3 seconds before dimming. The readout updated, showing a blessed treasure map of rare quality. Its stats were now boosted by divine power, with a chance to dig up a divine item at the site and a guaranteed special item. He let out a low whistle because this blessing was getting absolutely insane the more he used it. He rolled the map out fully and saw the gold chest icon as he expected, but all 3 skulls had also turned gold. Soki muttered, wondering if this meant the guardians had been buffed to insane levels. This did not make sense. Luck should make things easier. He shrugged it off. If he could not decipher the map, he would see it with his own eyes. His badger charged ahead, and they cleared the tree line to find the first boss. The guardian was waiting, a giant bear the size of his badger. Soki aimed his. He uses his beast encyclopedia technique. The screen displays it as a treasure guardian. A Mandela giant bear cub with Wang-level strength from a fierce bloodline. Its talents are great strength and thick skin, with heavy strike skills. Along with a hissing bite and high danger level, the system description notes. This species roams giant forests, with adults reaching 170 meters at TN tier strength. Their hide, claws, and gall are highly valuable. It shares a strength tier with his badger, though its bloodline is 2 ranks below the badger's giant mutated beast line. This means a clean matchup. Stepping in personally is a terrible idea. 2 behemoths colliding at 14 meters of body length leaves no room for a human. One misplaced giant paw would easily grind him into the dirt. Even worse, fighting alongside the badger would make it second-guess every single strike. While tracking where he landed, he swings down, slapping its flank to release it, and tells his beast to go wild. The earth badger roars, shaking the entire forest canopy, and charges straight for the bear. He almost feels sorry for this Mandela giant bear, since the earth badger species is literally built for a brutal brawl from birth. Plus, his pet has a superior giant mutated beast bloodline, so, roughly. Even opponent is just a welcome warm-up his badger is going to thoroughly enjoy. The beast crashes into the bear at full speed. They drop into an absolute clash, raining leaves down from the canopy, the long, slender badger versus the plump, heavily padded bear, pure fat defense against a mutated beast bloodline. Neither fighter has an active skill to break the rhythm, it is just heavy bear thumps. Against sharp batter claws, wild bites, and heavy strikes, the badger's passive specialization empowers every melee hit. In close quarters, this beast has absolutely no equal. The bear's double thick skin keeps it durable, but defense without a strong counterattack is just slow, inevitable defeat. Its unique flesh-skin separation keeps the badger from bleeding out. The bear's claws cannot cut deep enough to reach muscle. When the two giant beasts finally pause to circle each other, the bear is streaked red from neck to belly, while his earth badger only has minor cosmetic scratches. The wild brawl resumes. 40 full minutes pass after the initial collision. The exhausted Mandela giant bear collapses, its massive body crashing down hard enough to shake the surrounding trees. The badger roars its victory to the sun, and he smiles. The beast has ignored several painful wounds just for the sheer joy of battle. After one last thunderous roar, it sits down to lick its wounds. But this presents a massive problem. If the first guardian is Huang level, the others are Huang level 2. The tired badger cannot face them at half stamina, so he leaves his pet to its grooming and approaches the carcass. His decomposition art activates, dissolving the body in an instant. The system panel pings with processed items. Mandela giant bear hide, 2 fine bear paws, a gallbladder, and 21 kilograms of meat. 4 inventory slots are gone at once, but this trade-off is more than fair since the gallbladder and paws will trigger rapid growth for his badger. The dissolved carcass leaves behind a faintly glowing bronze chest. The system panel identifies it as a bronze treasure chest touched by divine power, quality bronze, with 2 to 4 items inside and a 50% chance of something special. Its description notes that even a tiny sliver of divine power, completely altered its essence. Talk about hitting the jackpot. He cracks the chest right open. He pops the lids off 3 items. First is an endless bear honey pot, a rare item producing 100 grams of bear honeybee honey per day. The info says it was just a byproduct of a blessing. He wonders if these are the same chubby bees he saw online before he transmigrated, but quickly shakes the thought off. Giant bees here are easily 10 meters across. The second item is the thick skin passive skill with a level 3 cap. It cuts incoming damage, so he gives it to the earth badger on the spot. The beast just twitches an ear. The third is a mandala heavy hammer, a rare weapon with a heavy strike, made from bear bone. It has a 2-meter handle. Honestly, it looks like a glorified club. But that heavy strike is pretty handy against giant canine beasts. Still, he counts 7 items in total, including the decomposition poles. Since the badger absorbed the passive skill, 6 items go straight into his inventory, filling up all his newly cleared slots again. He saves the fine bear paws and gallbladder for the badger. With his harmony talent buffing everything, investing in his pet is always the smartest play. He hops back onto the badger's back, heading toward the next skull marker just to scout things out. Monsters here normally will not attack during the beginner protection window. But those guardians guarding a treasure site are a completely different story. He is not risking his life today. A short ride later, they spot them. The earth badger immediately tries to charge forward, but he slaps its flank, striking it so hard his own palm stings, yelling to stop. A whine slips from the badger as it looks back, feeling cheated. He rolls his eyes, reminding the beast that it is already injured, definitely not ready to fight 2 fresh Huang-level guardians at once. They only came here to observe anyway. The badger flops down, staring sadly at the dirt. He pats its head, then focuses on the actual guardians. They are twin-winged snakes, 14 meters long, with brightly colored scales and tails shaped like swords. He uses the Beast Encyclopedia technique to scan them. The readout pops up, twin-feathered serpents, hang-level strength with giant demonic beast bloodline. Their talents are twin flight and feather poison. Active skills include venom spray, rapid advance, and spike pierce. The guide says they always hunt in male and female pairs, living on cliffs. At adult size, they reach 180 meters at peak Tian level. Their wings are top-tier crafting items. He raises an eyebrow at their Poison talent and taps to read more, the wings carry it. Their feather shot skill delivers it, and they fly in unison. Essentially, the two snakes fight as one perfectly synchronized team. Their teamwork is flawless, that is the bad news. The good news is that the earth badger species is famously immune to venom. His pet's perfect quality toxicity adaptation makes it completely immune. So those poison attacks, they are going to do absolutely nothing. The remaining threat was that tail's sword, which actually worried him because the badger's hide was tough, but a sword-shaped spike could still pierce right through the gut. The treasure dig itself sat right under the snake's nest. Behind them, he tapped the badger to turn around since they were going back, and was already turning over a plan on the ride home, one taking advantage of the novice grace exactly as the system never intended. The cleanest method was to strike early, as long as nobody saw him as hostile during the novice window. He could walk up and chop tails off two cubs who had no idea they were being measured for surgery. The badger would distract them from the front because those wings were the active threat, and the snakes would track the louder enemy, while he would target the tails from behind, take both, then let the badger engage cleanly. That was his only reliable move, short of some overwhelming power which he lacked, and so the plan was made. The route back differed from the path in, and he scanned for any unlucky cubs, while the map handled navigation. Giant rock surfaced in the dirt a few hundred meters off, and he sat up because the angle and the dirt slope shouted red mineral vein. He slapped. Badger redirected. He jumped down and walked the perimeter, reddish-brown, shading toward orange, wet and smelling of rust. The seam ran wider than he could see, making it almost certainly lemonite, iron ore that rusted on water. Contact weathered here through plenty of seasons. He teleported into the foundation, grabbed the iron pickaxe and teleported back out. The moment he held it, the lemonite generated a personal panel that had not been there a second earlier. Lemonite mixed ore vein, category small ore vein. Quality excellent. The description noted low iron content, with stone making up more than half. He dropped the pick to test. The panel vanished. When he picked it back up, the panel returned in the same blink. He shook his head, impressed. Because tools unlocked material panels. Without the right one, you were not just refused drops. You could not even see what you stood on. A wide open scam for any survivor who had not figured it out. Brutal, and a rule the chat had probably explained while he was away, so he would skim the feed. Later, the badger lay down in the shade and watched him work, the pickaxe ringing. On the lemonite, the system pinged each strike, stone ×3 and lemonite ×1, while the numbers piled up under the morning sun. After 2 solid hours, he had cleared every surface section, the final tally landing at 214 stone and 78 lemonite, with the seam continuing under the dirt where he could not reach without a real dig. He wiped his forehead, grumbling about being a laborer in the heat. His pickaxe was visibly chewed at the edge, the sun red. Close to noon, and the badger had already retreated under the deepest shade, so he marked the vein on his treasure map and walked back for lunch. They made it home to the front of the tree hole, and the badger went horizontal in a cool spot. While he cleared the bonfire ground, he stepped into the foundation, scooped every junk-grade stone out of the grass hut, and stepped back out to build a ring. 27 stones formed a 3-meter fire pit, and he gathered dry leaves for kindling, dry branches for fuel, shaped 2 Y-shaped sticks into a spit, and worked the friction fire under the noon sun, which in this dry weather was almost trivial. A dry leaf, some quick rubbing, a few sparks, and the bonfire catches fast. He rinses his giant sword in the river and skins a dry branch to make a skewer. Then he pulls a massive prepped chicken leg from his inventory cabinet and skewers it. The single leg is over 1.5 meters long, hilariously massive. He scores the meat with his great sword to make sure it cooks all the way through, letting the delicious aroma escape. Almost immediately, the quiet clearing starts smelling like a massive holiday feast. He actually knows how to grill, thanks to his old days cooking at the orphanage. The giant poultry turns, drips, and spins over the hot fire. After half an hour, the skin is perfectly crispy and the meat is firm. He slices deep down to the bone with his sword to verify it is cooked all the way through. Suddenly, a wet, dripping sound comes from behind him, and he turns, and yep, there is a massive earth badger drooling over the dirt. Its eyes are locked onto the sizzling meat. He asks if it wants some, and the badger nods so vigorously its entire head bounces. He tells it to wait, grabs 2 raw legs from his foundation space, and brings them out. He skewers both of them and sets up a second roasting rig over the fire. He explains slowly that the little beast now has its own dinner to cook. Self-sufficiency is the true path to abundance, he says with a straight face. He walks away with his meal, leaving the badger to stare blankly at the two raw portions. It looks completely baffled, like a student handed a wrench. This meal is pure heaven for him. He has wanted a giant chicken leg since he was a boy, back when his tiny salary could never afford it. Now he is tearing massive chunks of meat off a piece longer than his thigh. Even as a juvenile, this flame-crested chicken has a giant demonic beast bloodline. Its flesh is packed with pure, usable energy. He only finishes half of the massive leg before stopping. Meanwhile, the badger is slowly turning its skewer, mimicking his earlier movements with extreme focus. It is clearly just winging it, and its meat has already turned a charred, matte black. The creature finally pulls it off the fire, sniffs it, takes a quick bite, and brightens up. Apparently, cooked meat completely beats eating it raw, even when it is totally burnt. It swallows half of the first piece in one gulp, then starts on the second, but then a scent of actual, properly cooked meat wafts over from his direction, and the badger's face immediately drops. He walks over with the remaining half of his giant leg, since wasting food is a terrible sin, and tells it to open wide. The badger complies. He drops the perfectly cooked meat in, and it crunches down with a look of pure bliss. He leaves the beast to eat in peace and gets back to work, tossing a few more logs onto the fire. He grabs a wooden post to carve while waiting on the Yua trade for water, needing some containers for his own use. His serrated axe slides through the wood easily, like sharp steel through dry pine. Within a short amount of time, he crafts 2 wooden barrels, both roughly a meter tall and half a meter wide, with handles. He carries the heavy barrels down to the river, with the badger following him, completely stuffed with cooked meat. He lets it drink while he fills the barrels and stores them in his perfect transport. The base beast's foundation never shifts, keeping everything steady so even sloshing water stays level. Back at the hollow, he pulls the barrels out. He opens his chat, messaging Yua that the food and water are ready. Within seconds, she replies. Turns out she's completely free and ready to trade. The trade invite pops up. He taps accept, opening their screen. Yua offers her wooden bench blueprint. In return, he puts down his materials: 2 1-kilogram pieces of raw meat and 1 full barrel of river water. And then, on a sudden whim, he throws in a half-burnt dead branch. Why not? Both of them confirm, and the trade completes in a flash. Yua showers him with thanks, calling him a genuinely good and kind person. He just glances at the messages, ignores them, and closes the chat window. Helping her cost him nothing. He remembers how kind neighbors were back at the orphanage, always slipping them extra food. Paying it forward feels natural to him. He drops the new blueprint into his cabinet inside the grass hut. Next, he grabs a second barrel and hangs it over the campfire. Time to boil some clean drinking water. While it heats, he grabs his serrated axe and heads to a massive nearby tree. It's hundreds of meters wide. Absolutely monstrous. The system scans it. Jufu food tree, common plant. It's just a standard species, native to this brutal, giant beast world. But as expected, holding the right tool unlocks the details on the material panel. Talk about a grind. Chop this giant down from the outside. That will take hours. Even with his badger companion digging in beside him, this Jufu wood isn't incredibly hard, which he knew from carving his tree hollow earlier. But the scale is just absurd. It means hours of heavy swinging, soft or not. He whistles his badger over. Time to get to work. Steel bites bark, badger claws rip wood. By hour 3, they are halfway through. He isn't worried about being crushed, though. He has a brilliant, simple plan. They made the cutting notch so incredibly wide that if the tree splits, they can simply lie down inside and let the trunk fall right over. Finally, after 4 hours of brutal chopping, the massive tree tilts and crashes, shaking the earth beneath his feet. The canopy obliterates everything in its path. As the giant tree settles, a sweet system alert flashes before him. 100 wood acquired. He blinks, completely stunned by this lucky shortcut. Cutting the base immediately processed the whole trunk. 0 tedious carving required. He leaves the remaining physical wood on the ground. Why bother hauling it? Grabbing those scraps would only yield useless, junk-grade pieces. He moves on. 100 clean wood. That is more than enough to upgrade his foundation. Entering the base beast, he pulls up his panel and hits upgrade. A flash of light teleports him outside. After a brief, quiet wait, The system pings base upgrade complete, plus 10 area, plus a crafting table. He teleports back inside. The grass hut looks exactly the same. A common tier 2x2 shack, but his total territory has grown. It has expanded outward, and that shiny new crafting table sits by the wall. The foundation panel updates. Grass hut base, common tier 14 by 13 meters. Subbuildings none, effects none, level 1. The crafting table awaits him. The crafting table shows special item qualities and trait lists. The storage sits empty. The introduction even calls this place a battlefield. This survivor device has a manual. Excellent quality is capped at rare. Output is capped at rare, but every starter table is excellent and upgradable. Upgrades are possible, and any uncollected crafted items go straight into table storage. The table cannot leave the base. He taps open the storage slots. Inside, a crafting table tray roulette is already sitting in one slot. This remarkable item grants a crafting table trait of perfect quality or below. It is a reward for the first 100,000 survivors to upgrade. He raises an eyebrow, deciding on his plan right then and there. Tomorrow's blessing of the goddess of luck is getting spent on the trait roulette. And nothing else, he walks into the grass hut to grab the blueprints. He loads the perforated charcoal and wooden stool blueprints into the table. He learns them instantly, and a notification pings to confirm the unlock. The rare perforated charcoal burns long and at a very high temperature. It requires wood, and common wood will produce excellent charcoal. Excellent wood produces rare charcoal, offering a real return on every grade. Charcoal will get expensive once the novice protection window finally ends. Night temperatures are already swinging hard, and the chat is panicking. They think it might drop below zero soon. Next is the wooden stool. This unique furniture provides a base comfort bonus of plus 10. It requires lumber. Higher comfort levels can trigger mysterious random events. These events can be good or bad, but only one stool takes effect. That mix of good and bad is a coin flip in theory, but not for him. With his lucky title and a mutated bloodline beast, the odds favor him. The only catch is lumber, a processed material he cannot craft yet. Without that blueprint, he files it away and checks the upgrade requirements instead. The level 2 upgrade needs 45 stone and 45 wood. Plus 9 excellent stone and 9 excellent wood, that is the real gate. He has absolutely 0 of those, so level 2 is not happening soon. He closes the panel and pulls out the simple chicken coop instead. The red-bellied flame-crested egg is overdue, so he places the coop down. A 3 square meter fenced pen unfolds in an open corner of the base. Simple wooden rails surround a tiny henhouse. He carries the egg outside. He places it carefully inside the nest, and a countdown timer appears. It shows 72 hours remaining. 3 days is actually pretty reasonable. He scratches his chin, wondering what the little chick will actually eat. Probably meat, considering the parents were both carnivorous fire throwers. But he keeps the giant bread ready, just in case it prefers grain. He organizes all the materials in his pack and around the hut. Then he checks the time. The sun is already past 4 in the afternoon. With only 1 hour of daylight left, he cannot let today go to waste. He is not wasting his daily use of the Transcender's fishing rod. He walks toward the river, with his guard badger tailing close behind him. He casts and the bobber hits the water with a soft splash. The float begins to bob up and down, almost mocking him. He is no expert angler, but he has watched enough videos to know patience is supposed to win the day, and the moment that thought crosses his mind, he ignores it and yanks the line, a Transcender's. Rod never comes home empty. Patience is only for fish he actually intends to catch. Water sprays everywhere as an object bursts out of the river on his line. And he catches it midair. The hook did not even bite. Whatever he just landed is simply tangled up in the line. The fishing rule is clearly stretched to its absolute limit here, and yes, it is as ridiculous as it sounds. He scratches his head, grumbling that this catch is way too forced. In his hand, the book pulled straight from the river is completely dry, without a single drop on the cover. The line on his Transcender's fishing rod vanishes the moment he gets solid grip on the book, leaving an empty rod. 1 use per day, that is it. The catch seals the cast. He stows the rod and turns his attention to the book in his palm. A system panel pops up before he can even brush any river water off his fingers, which are still perfectly dry anyway. Since the cover is bone dry, the readout names it as Me's Alchemy Notes. Special item of uncommon quality. Using it grants between 1 and 3. Potion blueprints up to rare quality. The description notes that this me was an intermediate alchemist who knew hundreds of formulas, was highly gifted, and forgot his own notebooks so often that he lost track of more than 100 of them. He reads the description twice, wondering how on earth a guy who forgets 100 notebooks ever becomes an intermediate alchemist. The system stays silent. He decides to rinse his hands in the river first, mostly out of superstition, since clean hands feel like they give better luck before rolling the gacha. Shaking the water off, he leans back against a tree and activates it. Success. The panel instantly chimes, delivering 2 blueprints into his inventory. He gets a low-grade blood red potion blueprint and a low-grade sleep potion blueprint, and he lets out a low whistle, 2 items at once. Now that is incredibly generous. He jumps onto the earth badger's back, slaps its flank, and points it home toward their tree hollow base. The blood red potion is categorized as a rare blueprint, learnable at the crafting table to brew blood red healing potions, with a description noting that it is alchemist me's own work, which heals wounds far better than ordinary drafts, a rare quality healing potion blueprint, the exact thing his earth badger needs before tomorrow's big fight, is now sitting in his pack. Talk about some absolutely insane luck. He can't even hide his massive grin. The sleep potion blueprint reads as an excellent quality item, learnable at the crafting table to make low-grade sleep potions. The description calls it a very common formula and one of the basic practice potions. It is much less flashy than the blood red but useful. Putting a giant beast to sleep mid-fight is a great trick. Is the exact kind of trick he would happily save for later. He teleports into the base, walks over to the crafting table, and drops both blueprints inside, and the system unlocks ping one after another. The blood red potion crafting page displays it as a rare healing potion, requiring materials like 2 blood red grass and 1 blazing monkey cicada larva shell, 500 milliliters of water, and a container. The description noted that this healing power was strong enough to fix anything short of broken bones or torn tendons. Blood red grass was the only ingredient he did not have yet, and the blazing monkey cicada larva shell was the exact same kind he had peeled off. Plenty of giant trees during those slow days. The sleep potions required basic materials like a single sleep flower, water, and a container. Simpler still. He teleported back out, set the earth badger to watch the bonfire, and triggered ejection to launch himself up the nearest giant tree trunk. Every giant tree on the ride home had carried a handful of blazing monkey cicada larvae shells, and an hour of climbing across the surrounding trees turned up 153 shells, more than enough for any potion production he could realistically run. The sun was sliding low by the time he came back down, so he called it a day and dropped onto a stone near the fire. The earth badger nudged his shoulder as if saying hello, rubbed its head, and carefully examined the wounds along its flank. The deeper cuts were still raw and without a blood dread potion in hand. The only treatment was rest and protein, which would push recovery to a day or 2 at the earliest. The novice grace expired tomorrow, though, and walking into the twin feathered serpents at less than full strength was not a plan he was willing to ride into. Blood grass was the missing piece, and the chat channel would tell him whether anyone had pulled it from a chest. He pulled the fine bear paw and the fine bear gallbladder out of the pack and offered them to the badger, since boosting its strength meant accelerating its healing. Right on cue, the greedy earth badger inhaled the gallbladder in one swallow, then pointed at the fire, staring at him with a teacher's patience. He got the obvious hint and asked whether it really wanted the paw cooked, and it nodded so hard its whole head bounced. Apparently raw meat was officially out of style for this picky beast. He skewered the paw on a wooden stick over the fire and laid 5-pound cuts of bear meat on a second rig beside it. His pack still held a small jar of bear honeybee honey from the endless honey pot, which the system panel classified as a rare material with energy-restoring effects collected by behemoth bear honeybees from various flowers. It was a key ingredient in many potions and medicinal dishes. The honey inside the jar was not liquid, but a soft, bouncy gel that smeared onto the meat in a thin glaze. He brushed each piece, set them turning, and let them sizzle over the flame. Half an hour later, the 5 steaks were giving off a mouth-watering aroma, and the badger was already drooling onto the dirt. He handed 3 to the beast and kept 2 for himself, since he had eaten half a drumstick at lunch, and that energy was still carrying him. The badger chewed with absolute focus, letting out a small, satisfied growl at the sweet honey. He ate his own portion slower, turning the bare paw on its skewer to keep the underside from burning. Soon, the last of the sunlight slid off the horizon and night dropped over the clearing. In a single instant, the fire crackled, the air cooled down fast, and he checked the paw with his great sword. To confirm the meat was cooked through, he handed it over, and the badger, completely ignoring the heat, snapped it up and went to town on it. It's the pure joy only a carnivore getting a treat could show, he tossed a few more branches onto the fire and opened up the chat channel because someone in the daytime feed had mentioned that night was the peak trading window. Most survivors hid away after dark since they could not see their own hands in front of their faces out here, making the chat one big continuous market from sundown to dawn. Sure enough, the moment he opened the channel, a massive flood of trade offers scrolled across his eyes. Someone wanted wood and stone at 10 units each to upgrade their base. Someone else complained about half cutting a giant tree, only to realize they had not gotten a single unit of wood, which another person confirmed required a complete chop at the base. Not just minor hacks, someone argued this was a giant beast world where trees were huge to humans but normal to beasts. He quietly disagreed in his own head because a Jew tree stretched several hundred meters high, while most adult giant beasts he had seen stayed under 200 meters. The trees were incredibly tall. By any standard, just structurally fragile. Then a new post caught his eye. A survivor was looking for medicine for an injured base beast, offering massive price. The replies flooded in. One player offered simple bandages that definitely would not stick to thick monster hide. Another person pointed out that as long as the cut was not too deep, a heavy high-protein meal worked faster than medicine because these giant creatures recovered at a highly absurd rate when fully fed. A third survivor agreed, claiming a deep gash, which had almost killed their own beast yesterday, was already healed up today. All of this happened just from a massive meal. He turned his head toward the earth badger and realized those players were right. The minor cuts along its side had already healed completely, leaving only a bit of dried blood on its dark fur. To prove they were ever there, the deeper cuts were mostly sealed now, and the beast looked way bigger. Curious, he opened its stats to see the new strength field, which showed it reached Hang Peak, a major upgrade with its bloodline still a giant mutated beast, plus the thick-skinned talent it had recently absorbed from the chest, along with its passive skills like specialization, toxicity, adaptation, and disdain. Its active skill field showed flesh separation, iron head, heavy strike, and thick skin. Though its home was still a grass hut, he exhaled a long, satisfied breath. Because the badger hitting Hang Peak level meant tomorrow's clash against those twin feathered serpents felt much more winnable now. The beast looked up at him as if wondering what the fuss was about, then went right back to chewing its paw. The global chat kept moving as he read. Demands for food had dropped significantly compared to yesterday, mostly because players finally figured out how to harvest giant monster meat. Clean water, however, was in desperate demand, since it could only be sourced from rivers, lakes, or random treasure chests, and almost no one had spawned near an actual body of water. Some players were complaining about the freezing cold hitting them just an hour after sunset, with one desperate guy putting up a rare blueprint for trade. To get warm clothes, he clicked on the item to inspect it. The description read, "Excellent quality wood blueprint, learnable at a standard crafting bench," which allowed raw timber to be produced from simple materials. It was a basic blueprint, nothing special. Soki read it twice, then he shut the panel. Wood was a basic resource. Needing a blueprint to craft wood felt like a funny joke the system never intended. He had no spare warm gear to offer anyone. After all, his red-billied flame crown cape was the only gear he had, and his bare hide was already pulling double duty as his sleeping mat. He sent a message into the chat asking for blood-red grass via private message. The replies flooded in within seconds. Most were just flirting with his avatar without offering any actual grass. The useful to useless ratio was terrible. One older woman even cursed at him with the kind of venom that showed a permanent personality defect, but the rest of the chat immediately piled on her so fast she had clearly earned her terrible reputation. Soki let the chat handle her for him. After 30 full minutes of scrolling, nobody had any blood-red grass. In a district of 100,000 survivors, not a single piece had turned up. or they refused to sell. He was already drafting a backup plan when suddenly, get this, a private message chimed through. The handle read Mom, and the message said, she actually had blood-red grass, lots of it, and she was thrilled to talk to Soki. Her attached profile showed a cute girl with huge, bright eyes. Her typing style sounded like an earnest, eager college freshman or a starstruck kid who just spotted her favorite idol.